Chapter 8:16. The night was getting darker. Mount Dibbing became brightly lit. Recently, the security measures on Mount Dibbing had been upgraded by several levels under Wang Shengxiao's personal intervention. After he came back from the desert prison yesterday, he officially ordered that Mount Dibbing would enter a state of war from that day on. Wang Shengxiao officially signed the expansion document of the Internal Defense Force of Mount Dibbing at noon that day. The document had been officially issued to the Beihai Corps. The new vice-marshal of the Beihai Corps, Firmament, had begun to study the list. Wang Shengxiao made it clear that in the next week to half a month, the scale of the Internal Defense Force of Mount Dibbing would be expanded from 13,000 people to 30,000 people. It was necessary to ensure that there would be no less than 15,000 combatants on Mount Dibbing 24 hours a day. Today Mount Dibbing was very busy and lively. The camp of the Internal Defense Force on the mountainside was expanding. A large number of weapons began to be installed in countless corners of Mount Dibbing. The Internal Defense Force began to have patrol codes. Everything was arranged one by one, clear and distinct. The entire Mount Dibbing seemed to have suddenly become an unbreakable and indestructible war fortress. With a large number of armaments and new elite combatants settled in the night, Mount Dibbing, which had been completely destroyed and began to slowly recover, looked extremely powerful and ferocious in the night. A middle-aged man, who looked travel-worn, stood quietly at the foot of Mount Dibbing. The light illuminated the foot of Mount Dibbing as if it were daytime. He stood quietly in the light, looking up at Mount Dibbing quietly, motionless and silent. One patrol team after another slowly walked past him, carefully observing the surrounding environment. The density of the entire Mount Dibbing was several times higher than before. The atmosphere on the mountain and at the foot of the mountain was solemn and rigorous. But it didn't seem so nervous. The slowly moving white light once again swept over the middle-aged man. The monitoring system on Mount Dibbing didn't respond. The patrol team that constantly passed by him also didn't respond. A small space around the middle-aged man seemed to be slightly wrinkled. The wrinkles completely covered his body, but only covered his body, blocking all the light, shadow and heat. Under the light, he was like a ghost standing in the nothingness. It was quiet on Mount Dibbing, with a touch of serenity in the solemnity. He looked up at Beihai seriously, sizing it up bit by bit, as if he was feeling something. Mount Dibbing was still the same, but he vaguely noticed that Mount Dibbing seemed to be different from the past. At the very least, it was different from the last time he came. What had changed here was not the terrain that had been changed by that mysterious prodigy's sword. Instead, it was a vague but real feeling, or rather, a change. He didn't know what he was looking for here. If he was a specter, then he was searching for another specter. Wisps of sword chi spread under his feet. The invisible and majestic sword chi was like a huge net, spreading out on the ground along the soles of his feet. In an instant, it had enveloped thousands of meters around the foot of the mountain. Within the scope of the sword chi, every grass and every tree at the foot of Mount Dibbing was clearly sensed by him. But there was nothing. He frowned, hesitated, and took a step forward. The light faded into the distance. He stood on the mountainside. It seemed that there was no longer the strict surveillance at the foot of the mountain, but the overall defense was even more dense. Chaos was coming to Beihai. The actions between the Vatican, East Island, and the Jiang family of South America had become more and more obvious. The several superpowers had not revealed their intention to Beihai yet, but their cooperation was gradually exposed. Wang Shengxiao, who realized that the enemy was approaching, set up defenses throughout Beihai. But he did not ignore the defense of Mount Dibbing. Everyone knew very well that no matter what the goals of the superpowers were, no matter how chaotic Beihai would be, the final location of this war would be Mount Dibbing. This was the place where Wang Shengxiao prepared the final battle. The sword chi continued to spread. In the middle-aged man's perception, in the dark corners, countless elites of the Wang family of Beihai were lurking and observing the situation on the mountain. A large number of long-range snipers, fire-flaming realm, and occasionally, thunder-shocking realm experts. His expression was calm as he searched quickly. The dense sword intent continued to spread, surging unceasingly. No one found his trace. Even when he was doing all this, he was standing next to a thunder-shocking realm expert from the Wang family of Beihai. The two sides were less than 2 meters away from each other, but the other side had been observing the front. There was still silence on the mountainside. His expression did not change at all. He just narrowed the range of the sword intent and searched more carefully. The night was getting darker. After the night, when dawn was about to break, he had searched the entire mountainside of Mount Dibbing. He found nothing. The top of the mountain was ahead. He frowned and continued to go up. The tide rose and fell. The tide-like sword qi on the stage of formidable person began to retreat to Beihai. Wang Shengxiao, who had been in the most focused state of meditation, slowly opened his eyes, feeling refreshed. He slowly stood up and looked at the still dark night over Beihai. He looked extremely comfortable. The majestic and unimaginable sword qi was pulled out little by little from the stage of formidable person. This sword qi seemed to have merged with every drop of water in Beihai. It was extremely soft and incredibly tolerant. Wang Shengxiao gently raised his palm. The invisible sword qi retreated from his hand to Beihai. Such a touch was invisible to the naked eye, but the feeling was extremely clear. It was strand after strand of sword qi that revolved without end, and they seemed to be formed by nature and were flawless. Every rotation of the sword qi seemed to represent the real supreme swordsmanship. The sword qi that surged to the stage of formidable person did not appear for a long time. But no one knew that Wang Shengxiao had broken through several small realms in just a few days while surrounded by the sword qi. Every time he meditated, it could be said that he truly advanced by leaps and bounds. The sword qi that was integrated with the sea was like his biggest thought, and the most invincible inheritance of Beihai. He closed his eyes and faced the ocean, as if he was reluctant to part with it. Streams of sword qi appeared around him one after another, spinning continuously. It seemed that the sword qi of the same origin had merged instantly. Wang Shengxiao straightened his body. His perception was magnified infinitely in an instant. He felt the torrent on the seemingly calm sea of Beihai. He felt the sharpness and purity of the sword qi traveling in the sea. The vast Beihai was slightly stirring. The sword qi merged. His perception kept flying away, and he felt the other side of the sword qi. Wang Shengxiao gently raised the corner of his mouth. He waved in that direction and said good morning. In the next second, the majestic sword qi suddenly reversed its direction. Wang Shengxiao was passively integrated with the sword qi. A small amount of sword qi gathered on the stage of formidable person, pulling Wang Shengxiao's perception to cover the top of Mount Dibbing. The pavilions, the chirping of birds, and the patrolling internal security troops all appeared in his perception. A familiar figure was standing in front of a palace in the center of the top of the mountain, staring at the palace, as if thinking about whether to go in or not. The palace was located in the center of the top of the mountain. It could be said to be the largest palace on Mount Dibbing. Emperor Hall. The palace. The place where the patriarchs of the Wang family of Beihai lived. Although Wang Shengxiao had never lived in it, it could be said to be his residence now. No, the entire Beihai could be said to be his. Wang Shengxiao suddenly opened his eyes, and his pupils contracted rapidly. He subconsciously took out his phone and found Firmament's number. But after thinking for a while, he put the phone back. Then, without any hesitation, he walked down the stage of formidable person and went directly to Emperor Hall. He was the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. No matter what he faced, there was no possibility for him to retreat or hide, especially on Mount Dibbing. The patrols passed by Wang Shengxiao one by one, and everyone greeted him respectfully. Wang Shengxiao responded with a smile and didn't say much. He didn't blame the patrol team for not discovering the distinguished guest who had rashly come to the door. With that person's current strength, if he didn't want to be discovered, no matter where he appeared, few people could find him. Making things difficult for these ordinary elites would only disappoint them. When approaching Emperor Hall, he waved his hand to call a patrol captain over, pointed to the direction of the kitchen, and said with a chuckle, "Go tell the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Make it rich." The captain saluted and quickly rushed to the kitchen. Wang Shengxiao carefully tidied up his clothes and slowly walked to Emperor Hall. The darkness on the horizon began to recede slowly. Dawn was coming, and there was a hazy shimmer on Mount Dibbing. Near Emperor Hall, All the elites of the internal security troops raised their hands and saluted as soon as they saw Wang Shengxiao. Everyone was respectful, but also a little confused, because Wang Shengxiao had been on the stage a formidable person since he became the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. He had never stayed here for a night. What was wrong with him today? Wang Shengxiao nodded and didn't say much. He just looked at Emperor Hall, which was close at hand. The sword energy on the stage of formidable person had retreated to the deep sea. In front of Wang Shengxiao, there was no one else except this luxurious palace and the elites of the internal security troops. Or rather, there was no one else. But Wang Shengxiao couldn't see it. Wang Shengxiao laughed at himself and walked over with the memory he had just felt. This position, if he was right, should be standing right next to him. The shimmer on the horizon flickered slightly. He raised his head and imitated the man's movements, watching quietly for a long time. The middle-aged man who had been searching on Mount Dibing all night turned his head and looked at Wang Shengxiao. The distance between the two was less than 1 meter. Wang Shengxiao couldn't feel his aura, but he could clearly see every expression on Wang Shengxiao's face. He narrowed his eyes slightly, feeling a little confused. Wang Shengxiao looked up at the palace in front of him and slowly opened his mouth. His voice was soft and slow. However, it exuded an aura of absolute majesty. Since when has Mount Dibing in Beihai become a place where others can come and go as they please? Everyone nearby was stunned for a moment. The elites of the internal security troops suddenly became nervous. They grabbed the guns in their hands and looked vigilant. The middle-aged man was obviously stunned for a moment. He didn't think Wang Shengxiao was bluffing. Otherwise, the location wouldn't be so coincidental. So, was he exposed? He thought about it and shook his head with a smile. The sword energy in the nothingness slowly shrank. The folds of space around the middle-aged man were instantly smoothed out. He looked a little tired but not haggard. He appeared in front of Wang Shengxiao and said with interest, "How did you find me?" Wang Shengxiao slowly turned around and looked at the gentle smiling face beside him. He said quietly, "Long time no see, Uncle Lin." Chapter 817. Crack. There was no uproar or chaos before Emperor Hall. In the face of the sudden change, the elites of the internal security forces of Mount Dibing showed a completely rare quality. All the people who saw this scene raised their guns in silence and pulled the bolts. The black muzzles were aimed directly at the middle-aged man who suddenly appeared, as if they could fire at any time. Uncle Lin. This title sounded really polite. No matter what the relationship between this man and Wang Shengxiao was, for today's Mount Dibing, he was indeed a veritable uninvited guest. He came uninvited, sneaked around, and hid his head but showed his tail. These words could all be applied to him. This was really an extremely embarrassing thing. Lin Fengting was a little embarrassed, and even a little guilty. It was hard to describe the feeling of being discovered soon after he came with full confidence. He coughed dryly, looked at Wang Shengxiao in front of him, and asked slowly, "How did you find me?" This was what he couldn't figure out the most. His talent in martial arts was indeed more terrifying than others had imagined, even slightly better than Li Guangtu's. In the chaos in Eastern Europe, he broke through the limit of the peak of the invincible realm and entered a new world. For today's dark world, he was really the top expert in the dark world. No one was his opponent. However, what many people didn't know was that breaking through the limit of the peak of the invincible realm was not his end. He was indeed only half a step away from the chosen one, but this half step was also big or small. He stood at the forefront of this half step and could vaguely see the end of martial arts. This feeling was very subtle. Not all people who broke through the limit of the peak of the invincible realm could stand at this height. This feeling, if really put into detail, was very much like the state when Wang Tianzong broke through the last step. However, Lin Fengting knew very well that he could only stop here. It was precisely because he could see the end of martial arts that he could clearly understand what he needed to pay in order to reach that step. Talent, luck, personal will, physical fitness, all of these were indispensable. But unfortunately, Lin Fengting almost did not have any of these conditions. To a martial artist, this was the saddest thing. Martial arts cultivation was originally a road to heaven, but not everyone could reach the end of this road. Every day, At every moment, someone would discover this fact. Maybe it was from the ice-condensing realm to the fire-flaming realm, or from the fire-flaming realm to the thunder-shocking realm, or from the thunder-shocking realm to the invincible realm. There were always some checkpoints in front of them, telling them that they could only go this far, and could not go any further. Lin Fengting never thought that he would be stuck at this step. He was naturally disappointed, but he seemed to have been too lazy all his life, so even his disappointment was not too obvious. After adjusting his mood, he quickly stopped worrying about this matter. He could see the scenery at the finish line, but he couldn't cross it. If I can't, then I won't go. A stable state of mind allowed him to completely stabilize his new breakthrough. He stood at the peak of the dark world, and his ability to hide his sword energy was unparalleled in the world. It was impossible for the Wang family of Beihai to detect his presence. So how did Wang Shengxiao find him? Wang Shengxiao shook his head and said nothing. He really couldn't find Lin Fengting. If the sword intent from the deep sea hadn't gone against the flow, maybe Lin Fengting wouldn't know that the other party had been here even if he turned Beihai upside down. However, these topics could not be talked about with Lin Fengting, and there was no need to talk about them. Beihai, the Lin clan. The two of them may have been close and reliable partners for many, many generations. But after the chaos in Eastern Europe ended, they should both know that even if they were not enemies, they were not friends. Lin Fengting waited for a while, and seemed to understand something. He glanced at him and said with a chuckle, I know that Mount Dibbing will not welcome me now. Shengxiao, I come here with no malice. I believe you. Wang Shengxiao nodded and said briefly. He believed what Lin Fengting said was true. With Lin Fengting's current strength, if he went all out regardless of the consequences, he could bring unimaginable disaster to Mount Dibbing alone. He might not be as good as the mysterious Chosen One, who almost destroyed Mount Dibbing with one sword strike. But unless the Wang family of Beihai was willing to die with him, there was really no other way. Uncle Lin, what are you doing here? Wang Shengxiao asked in a calm voice. When he was young, he liked Uncle Lin very much. He was not as serious and silent as his father. Instead, he was easy to get along with. So much so that for a period of time, he even yearned to live in the Lin clan. However, everything in the past had become a fleeting cloud. Now when he saw this uncle, there was only defensiveness left in his heart. Nothing. I just came to have a look. Lin Fengting said insincerely. He seemed to think of something and said with a smile. How is it? Has Song Xiai given birth? Is it a boy or a girl? At the last moment when Li Tianlan swept across Beihai, he appeared in Mount Dibbing and knew the news that Song Xiai was pregnant. It should have been a while since the little fellow was born. It's a boy. Wang Shengxiao's face softened for a moment, then he shook his head and said, But now they are not in Mount Dibbing. I can't let you see them. What a pity. Lin Fengting sighed with some regret. Then there was silence. Neither of them spoke. Wang Shengxiao still looked at him, quiet, calm, without any emotion. Lin Fengting didn't know what to say. He didn't expect to be found here. Now he was caught. It seemed that whatever he said was wrong, but it didn't seem right to say nothing. Hide again? Lin Fengting recalled Wang Shengxiao's performance just now. Although he didn't know how the other party found him, he felt that if he hid again, Wang Shengxiao might not be able to find him again. But Lin Fengting couldn't be so shameless after all. Should he just leave? Thinking about it, he felt a little unwilling. I'm here to confirm something. Lin Fengting was silent for a long time before he spoke. This time he didn't hide anything and simply told the truth. What is it? Wang Shengxiao raised his eyebrows, but his body tensed up. Have you seen it? Lin Fengting asked. Wang Shengxiao frowned and shook his head, saying, I don't know what you're talking about. You don't have to hide anything. In fact, it's meaningless to hide. Let's not talk about our current relationship. At the beginning, Beihai and the Lin clan were inseparable. I can know the existence of that thing. How can you not know? Or, did you misunderstand the meaning of inseparable? Do you think Beihai can have that thing? Doesn't the Lin clan have it? Lin Fengting asked. Wang Shengxiao frowned more tightly. He glanced at Lin Fengting and said slowly, I didn't mean that, but I really don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know why you think so. Human Emperor. Lin Fengting said calmly, "A day ago, I was still enjoying the spring in the southern hemisphere, but I learned the conditions you negotiated with Tianlan. You're willing to hand over the human emperor, so there's only one possibility. That thing has recovered. We have no choice but to hand over the human emperor. We do need the help of Li Tianlan and Emperor Dong's palace, but this doesn't prove anything." "Really?" Lin Fengting asked blandly. "The human emperor is the core foundation of the Wang family of Beihai, and in your current situation, you may not have to use such an important thing to make allies. This is not a choice. In my opinion, this is giving up. You can give up the human emperor only because the Wang family of Beihai has something better than the human emperor. Xing Xiao, what are you worried about? Are you worried that I'll take it by force? Even if I'm really so despicable, that thing is here. Can I take it away? I'm not even sure if I'm a match for it. In that case, why are you so persistent? Just to have a look?" "Just to have a look." Lin Fengting nodded seriously. "To see what it is that can really protect such a glorious family. Uncle Lin, you can go home and have a look." Wang Shengxiao stared at Lin Fengting's face. "You just said that the Lin clan also has what the Wang family of Beihai has. That's why I came to have a look. I can't find that thing." He spread his hands. "I can't find it in Beihai, nor can I find it in the Lin clan. It's been decades and I don't know where it is. I only know that it's within the scope of Worry-Free Villa. Who knows what it is? If you can't find it, can Beihai find it?" Wang Shengxiao shook his head. "I know you can't find it either, but that was before. But now you've given up on the human emperor, so I can only think that during this period of time, you've established some kind of connection with it. I want to see it, and even want to know how to make it recover. This is very important for the Lin clan." Lin Fengting looked at Wang Shengxiao with a serious and peaceful expression. He really just wanted to have a look. And it seemed that he could only have a look. Wang Shengxiao shook his head. "I can tell you that it does exist, but I can't give you other answers." He moved his body and said, "Uncle Lin, if you don't want to have breakfast here, I'll arrange a car to take you down the mountain." Lin Fengting narrowed his eyes. He hesitated, changed the angle, and tentatively said, "What if I have to have a look?" Wang Shengxiao's tightly frowned brows raised slightly for a moment. "Does it make sense?" he asked. "If it doesn't want to see you, you can't find it. For it, neither the Lin clan nor Beihai is the place it wants to protect. It just wants to be complete. At this time, it can't take any risks." Lin Fengting was silent. Wang Shengxiao smiled. He was a little tired and whispered, "Uncle Lin, don't force me. I'm no match for you now. But since you're on Mount Dibbing, I'm not helpless. I just don't want to become that kind of monster. I don't want to kill you until that point. That thing shouldn't be used on you." Chapter 8:18. In Samsara Palace, Saint was the most idle. In Emperor Dong's palace, Saint was also the most idle. Different positions meant different responsibilities to be shouldered. Military counselor and Flaming Fire's original positions were to escort Li Tianlan's growth. One of them mastered force, and the other mastered resources. Both of them could play an irreplaceable role in Li Tianlan's growth. But Saint was different. From the very beginning, he was regarded by the master of Samsara Palace as Li Tianlan's future right-hand man. Now Li Tianlan was cultivating his sword in the desert prison. As his right-hand man, Saint had nothing to do other than guarding the wounded in the hospital. The power inside Mount Shu was now shifting. Nirvana sword was still transcendent. But Han Chongyang, the yin and yang swordmaster, had begun to appear more and more in public view and began to shoulder the responsibility of the head. For more than a year, Saint had been staying in the hospital and hadn't even returned to Mount Shu. He was withdrawing. Even Nirvana sword was put back in Mount Shu as he joined Emperor Dong's palace. That was the place where he grew up. His family, including his parents, were all from Mount Shu. That place had given him too many things. Joining Emperor Dong's palace was his promise and responsibility. But obviously, he didn't want to involve Mount Shu when he was already involved in the internal game of Zhongzhou State. The days of guarding the hospital were very ordinary. He was a wounded person and spent most of his time in his ward. He rarely appeared unless there were special circumstances. As for entertainment, he occasionally played poker with Gong Sun-chi and chess with Situt Songyua, so he didn't feel bored. But as the atmosphere between the parliament and Beihai kept changing, especially after he followed Wang Shengxiao to the Wang family of Beihai 3 days ago, the atmosphere of the whole hospital seemed to be changing. More and more people came to the hospital. Everyone had their own reasons to visit Saint and the wounded, but there was only one purpose: to test the specific attitude of Emperor Dong's palace. Saint received some people patiently, but within a day, he shut himself in the ward again and refused to visit, saying that he was not feeling well. It's not good to hide like this. In the quiet ward, black and white were intertwined on the delicate chessboard. Situt Songyua put down the chess piece in her hand, looked at Saint, and said with a faint smile, "Today a lot of people came. What can I do? Everyone wanted an attitude from me, but the problem was, how could there be an attitude in this matter?" Tianlan was still in the desert. Someone went to the desert to ask him. One by one, they came to torment him. What was this? Bully the weak and fear the strong? Saint said grumpily. Whether before or now, although there was a gap in age between the two, there was no difference in status. No one would think that the status of the city governor of Sai City was much higher than that of the sword master of Mount Shu, especially Wei Kunlun, the first sword master. Now that he had entered the invincible realm, the difference in status between the two had been completely wiped out, and they were completely equal when communicating. Someone's gone. Situt Songyua smiled and said, "Didn't the president and the prime minister go?" Saint was silent for a while and shook his head, not knowing what to say. Has Tianlan really decided? Situt Songyua said, "Fully cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai?" Saint agreed and said frankly, "There is no good choice. Tianlan may think about the future of Emperor Dong's palace and nothing else. But in my opinion, if he accepts the conditions of the president and the prime minister, Kunlun City will inevitably fight back with all its strength. At that time, the situation will be more chaotic. This choice is good for everyone." "A lot of people are waiting for you to say that," Situt Songyua said thoughtfully. "It will take some time. Emperor Dong's palace, the giant group, the southeast group, and the Wang family of Beihai all need some time to prepare." Saint shook his head. It was really not the time to show his attitude. Although he had shown some obvious inclinations when he went to the Wang family of Beihai with Wang Shengxiao, since he did not make it clear, Zhongzhou State would not take any drastic action. But even so, he paid a little price for going to the Wang family of Beihai. 3 days was not a long time, but a batch of funds originally planned to be secretly allocated to Xianyuan City was temporarily put on hold. It could not be said that Zhongzhou State was overly sensitive or petty. It was just a warning. Zhongzhou State was also using this reaction to show their determination. There was no doubt that once Emperor Dong's palace completely decided to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai, then Zhongzhou State would not hesitate to fully suppress Emperor Dong's palace. Such a reaction also made Saint secretly vigilant. At least at this time, he could not show the attitude of Emperor Dong's palace to the outside world. They might not have too much time, but the later they showed their attitude, the better. Every extra day meant one more day of preparation. At that time, they would not be struggling under the suppression of Zhongzhou State. Drag it on. Saint took a light breath and laughed at himself. When it can't be dragged on, life will be difficult. How long do you think it will last? Situt Songyua asked. Emperor Dong's palace, the Wang family of Beihai, and the parliament. The game was only an internal matter of Zhongzhou State. No matter how tragic it was, no one would really define the other party as an enemy. Now both sides of the game only needed a result. Whether the result was good or bad, as long as it appeared, it meant the end of the matter. After the game, the next step was naturally to compromise. After Emperor Dong's palace showed its attitude, the following days would indeed be very difficult. But as long as the result appeared and a new balance and conditions acceptable to all parties were reached, the assistance would continue. This itself was the condition of balance, and it could even be said to be the most important condition. Who knows? Saint shook his head. Maybe it will be very fast, maybe it will be very slow. I guess at least we have to wait until this time next year. You won't do anything this time? Situt Songyue was a little curious. Saint nodded and said calmly, Minister Wei Tianheng came to see me yesterday. Situt Songyue's eyes narrowed and became extremely focused. Wei Tianheng. He was a member of the Parliament of Zhongzhou State and the Deputy Minister of the Army Headquarters. He ranked below Dongqing Wudi and Yi Dongsheng and was in charge of national defense. He was one of the leaders of the Prince Group who stood on the front stage now. In terms of blood relationship, he was Saint's eldest brother. They were brothers who were 13 years apart. However, the relationship between the two was not very good. To some extent, it could even be said to be bad. If Emperor Dong's palace cooperated with Beihai, the cooperation between the giant group and the southeast group would inevitably be closer. The army headquarters would also become one of the main battlefields of the game. At that time, Wei Tianheng would face the double pressure from Dongqing Wudi and Yi Dongsheng. So it was completely understandable that he could not sit still and came here first. What did he say? Situt Songyue said slowly. He told me that if Emperor Dong's palace chose to stand by Mount Dibing, then this game would become a real war. He asked me if Emperor Dong's palace was ready to be defeated. Saint held the chess piece in his hand, expressionless. Ah, Situt Songyue sneered. How did you answer him? I don't need to answer anything, and I don't think he is in the mood to listen to me. Saint shook his head. There is nothing to answer. At this point, we can only move forward. If we don't win, we will die. Let's go all out. Chapter 819. Lin Fengting stayed in Mount Dibing for 3 consecutive days. Wang Shengxiao entertained him with good food and drinks and didn't insist on driving him away. The Lin clan and the Wang family of Beihai might not be friends now, but at least they were not enemies. Obviously, they didn't want to treat each other as enemies. Lin Fengting came to Mount Dibing uninvited, but since he was here, Wang Shengxiao, as a junior, naturally had to show due courtesy. Lin Fengting was arranged to stay in a palace not far from Emperor Hall. During the day, Wang Shengxiao accompanied him almost all the time. At night, a large number of elites of the internal security force faintly surrounded the palace. They didn't hide their defensive posture at all. It was clear that they hoped Lin Fengting would leave as soon as possible. Wang Shengxiao stayed in the stage of Formidable Person at night. The sword intent from the deep sea filled the stage of Formidable Person. He integrated with the sword intent, and could clearly feel every corner of Mount Dibing, observing Lin Fengting's movements. Lin Fengting didn't intend to look for that thing. Although he didn't move, the dense sword energy was shuttling in every corner of the top of the mountain. Starting from the palace where he lived, Wang Shengxiao could clearly feel the fine cracks caused by the opponent's sword energy tearing the space. But Lin Fengting never noticed the majestic sword energy on the stage of Formidable Person. Wang Shengxiao was calm and collected. In his perception, Lin Fengting had used sword qi to search every corner of Mount Dibing in the past 3 days, but he had found nothing. Lin Fengting was undoubtedly a person who abided by the rules. After his hidden whereabouts were exposed by Wang Shengxiao, he didn't hide any more on Mount Dibing. After making sure that he couldn't find the clue of that thing, Wang Shengxiao's mind gradually shifted from him to the internal purge. 3 days ago, Xianming, who controlled all the intelligence organizations of the Wang family of Beihai, officially accepted most of the elites of Jiangnan society in Beihai. Wang Shengxiao personally transferred Lu Shuanghua, the person in charge of Jiangnan society, to Beihai. A large number of intelligence experts dug deep inside Beihai, looking for all the clues. 2 days ago, Wang Shengxiao decided to tentatively attack 2 suspicious places in Beihai. One of the 2 places was empty. The other one, on the other hand, met with fierce resistance. Several swordsmen from East Island broke through the encirclement, and dozens of elites of the Beihai Corps were wounded. The fight was fierce and short. The swordsmen of East Island left the hiding place immediately and destroyed all the subsequent clues. The battle ended very quickly. However, this was the first battle that the major powers had clashed with the North Sea Legion after infiltrating the North Sea. After a long period of oppression and scheming, the first sparks of war had already begun to erupt in the increasingly turbulent North Sea. It was precisely because of this short war that it officially confirmed that several superpowers were indeed lurking in Beihai and plotting against Mount Dibing. The previous speculation had evidence in an instant, which meant that everything was on the right track. Wang Shengxiao threw in a massive amount of resources without hesitation. Shenzhou Floating Island, Kanglin Empress, Autumn Water, Tongtian Liuli. The 7 cities and the entire province were like an inescapable net, trapping the elites of the major factions. All the forces in the North Sea were searching for them. When Lu Shuanghua hurried to the stage of formidable person, Wang Shengxiao had just finished a night of meditation and was about to invite Lin Fengting to breakfast. Seeing the enchantress coming up with the intelligence giant, he was slightly stunned and said slowly, "Uncle Lu, what's the matter?" "Patriarch." Lu Shuanghua nodded. His pace was fast, but his voice and expression were still calm. "I have some important discoveries here, and the target is more important. I need your approval before I start." "Target?" Wang Shengxiao's pupils contracted. At this stage, the task of Xianming and Lu Shuanghua was to investigate some places where the enemy might be lurking. But Lu Shuanghua's words directly located the target. The target and the place were two completely different things. "Go ahead." Wang Shengxiao narrowed his eyes and said quietly, "Huangfu Renjie of the Huangfu family." Lu Shuanghua's tone was calm. "I can be sure that he has a very close relationship with Wang Xiaoyao. The relevant evidence is all here. The most important evidence is that, in our surveillance, my people accidentally found that Huangfu Renjie had contact with an intelligence officer of Jifeng Sword Training School. Coincidentally, this intelligence officer had participated in some activities in Zhongzhou State. His identity was secretly recorded by us." He handed a document in his hand to Wang Shengxiao. Wang Shengxiao lowered his head and quickly glanced through it. The information was all about some matters and data, including the transfer of some resources. There were also some money transfers and some photos. All of these showed that Huangfu Renjie and Wang Xiaoyao had a close relationship. And Huangfu Renjie's contact with the intelligence officer of Jifeng Sword Training School was the most direct evidence. Wang Shengxiao's expression was still calm, but his eyes were a little gloomy. Huangfu Renjie. He was the number 2 figure in the intelligence system of the Huangfu family. This identity was nothing in the whole North Sea, but inside the Huangfu family, he was one of the high-level core. This meant that Wang Xiaoyao had reached into the 7 sword-holding families a long time ago. Huangfu Renjie was the first one. Would there be a second one? Or even a 100th one? How much do you know about the situation? Wang Shengxiao asked slowly. At present, we only have this clue. His identity is a bit special. He is a core member of the sword-holding family, so we can't act rashly. But if we can control him, we can at least take down 1/3 of the latent forces in Qiushui City. This can even be said to be our biggest harvest since the search. I'll take people to Qiushui City, ask the Huangfu family for him, catch him and kill him. The enchantress's voice was cold and cruel. Lu Shuanghua and Wang Shengxiao shook their heads at the same time. Wang Shengxiao noticed the other party's movement, suppressed his inner emotions and said with a smile, "Uncle Lu, what do you think? If you have anything to say, just say it. You are my father's friend and my elder, so you don't have to worry about anything." Lu Shuanghua raised her head and took a deep look at Wang Shengxiao. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "These places may not necessarily exist in isolation. If Wang Xiaoyao runs a network inside Beihai, then Huangfu Renjie should be a relatively important figure. This person should even play a very important role in helping several superpowers lurk. I suggest we monitor him secretly first, and then slowly." "There's no time." Wang Shengxiao shook his head. "Of course this is the best way. But Zhongzhou State may not give us too much time. Uncle Lu, what I need is to deter the major forces and alert them. First, we need to destroy some of their forces and disrupt their plans. Huangfu Renjie is a very suitable candidate. But he is a member of the Huangfu family." Lu Shuanghua lowered his head, his eyes flashing, and said in a low voice, "Patriarch, are you sure that the 7 sword-holding families are on our side?" Chapter 820. To this day, would the 7 families still stand on Wang Shengxiao's side? This question was very heart-wrenching. but it was also very realistic. The significance of the existence of the sword-holding families was to help Mount Dibbing stabilize the situation in Beihai. It was necessary to unite against foreign enemies. But the biggest problem facing Mount Dibbing now was not foreign aggression, but internal worries. It was Wang Xiaoyao and Wang Qinglei. Wang Xiaoyao was now an expert of the invincible realm. After Dijiang was expelled and Wang Tianzong disappeared, he was now the only expert of the invincible realm in the Wang family of Beihai. He was only in his 30s this year, and his future was also worth looking forward to. Moreover, he also controlled tens of thousands of elite troops of the Beihai Corps in Snow Country, and even dominated the dark world of Snow Country today. Needless to say, Wang Qinglei, as a person who was determined to rush to the #1 position in 6 years, did not need to prove any strength at all. The two together might not be able to overthrow Wang Tianzong. But Wang Tianzong was now missing. Objectively speaking, the appearance of Wang Xiaoyao and Wang Qinglei had the capital to shake the minds of many people. How would the 7 sword-holding families choose? Huangfu Renjie was one of the high-level members of the Huangfu family. If he could be roped in by Wang Xiaoyao, would other people in the Huangfu family be roped in by Wang Xiaoyao? And how many people in other families had Wang Xiaoyao roped in? Wang Shengxiao was silent. The enchantress trembled slightly for a moment. Thinking of a possibility, she suddenly shuddered, and then her whole body exuded an even colder killing intent. Nurturing a tiger invites disaster. At this time, no one could be sure what Wang Xiaoyao, who had been unguarded for so many years, had done in secret, and what a terrifying team he had cultivated. Although this possibility was very small, no one could deny that Wang Xiaoyao might have roped in a part of the power that was enough to compete with Mount Dibbing. Make an appointment with the patriarch of the Huangfu family for me. Wang Shengxiao was silent for a long time, and then said faintly, I will wait for him for lunch today. Patriarch. Lu Shuanghua wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. It's okay. Wang Shengxiao smiled and said, the patriarchs of the 7 sword-holding families can still be trusted at this stage. My father has not died yet. Even if some people don't know the situation, these patriarchs should always know that not all gambles can be won. Lu Shuanghua hesitated for a moment before nodding. I'll arrange it right away. Wang Shengxiao nodded, looked at him, smiled and said softly, the work efficiency of Jiangnan Road is good. Huangfu Renjie needs to be taken care of. As for the specific measures, I will discuss it with clan leader Huangfu. I'll let you know after we talk. All right. Lu Shuanghua agreed without hesitation. Are there enough people? If it's not enough, I can send you more people. Wang Shengxiao casually asked. I'm still too busy for the time being. However, regarding the matters of the battle, I'll need the patriarch's help. Lu Shuanghua said. Wang Shengxiao thought for a moment and said, I'll arrange for someone to fight. In addition, I'll adjust your authority later. North of Kanglin, the authority of the members of Jiangnan society will be raised by 1 level. He reached out and pressed his hand on Lu Shuanghua's shoulder. He leaned forward slightly and said with a serious look in his eyes, no matter what, dig them out. Lu Shuanghua took a deep breath and nodded solemnly. Wang Shengxiao still wanted to say something, but his phone suddenly rang. He took out his phone and answered it. A respectful voice sounded on the phone. Your Highness, Mr. Lin said he's leaving. Wang Shengxiao was stunned and said, I'll be there right away. Lin Fengting had been here for 3 days without finding anything. According to his character, he naturally wouldn't stay long. Clan leader, if there's nothing else, I'll go back to Qiushui. I'll go with Huangfu Renjie myself. Lu Shuanghua said. Okay. Wang Shengxiao walked down the stage, a formidable person with him, and shook hands with him. Thank you. Lu Shuanghua said no more. He came and left in a hurry. Wang Shengxiao didn't turn around until his figure completely disappeared, and walked to Lin Fengting's palace. Lin Fengting didn't have any luggage, so he didn't need to pack anything. When Wang Shengxiao walked into the palace, he was sitting on the sofa, quietly drinking tea alone. Seeing Wang Shengxiao come in, he nodded and said gently, Sorry to disturb you these days. Uncle, you're welcome. Wang Shengxiao smiled and asked knowingly, Uncle, did you find anything? No. Lin Fengting said with a faint smile. I tried to find it again, but it obviously didn't want to see me. Wang Shengxiao thought that it didn't have the mood to talk to him now, but he shook his head and said, I'll arrange a car to send you down the mountain. Lin Fengting put down the teacup, got up and walked out of the door. Wang Shengxiao followed him silently. How did you find me that day? Lin Fengting suddenly asked. Did it tell you? Wang Shengxiao shook his head and said nothing. Shaking his head meant many things. So did silence. So Lin Fengting didn't understand. He just suddenly laughed. If I hide myself again, can you still find me? Wang Shengxiao's expression didn't change. He said flatly, Uncle, why don't you have a try? Because this is Mount Dibbing. Lin Fengting said softly. His tone was a little emotional. Then let's thank each other. Wang Shengxiao said slowly. This sentence was a little inexplicable, but Lin Fengting could understand. He nodded. What's your next plan? Wang Shengxiao said with a smile. Where are you going to have fun? Let's take a look in Beihai. Lin Fengting said. Since I'm here, I can't come here in vain. I'll take another look at the old scenery, and then walk around Zhongzhou State. When it's time, I'll go to the desert and then go home. Lin Fengting was a little absent-minded and shook his head. I'm in my 50s. If I walk around the world again, I'll leave. Wang Shengxiao didn't say anything about this. I know what you're suspecting, but your suspicion is unnecessary. I really didn't find that thing in the Lin clan, so I wanted to come and have a look. But since you don't agree, then forget it. Lin Fengting continued. Uncle, you can go home and look for it slowly. You'll find it, Wang Shengxiao said. Lin Fengting shook his head with a smile. Suddenly he reached out and rubbed Wang Shengxiao's hair. You have your worries and I have mine. Forget it, I don't care. I won't see you. Wang Shengxiao laughed. Carefree is the greatest freedom. Lin Fengting nodded. A black car appeared in the distance. Before the car arrived, he took a deep look at Wang Shengxiao and said slowly, I don't know if I'm overthinking it. You gave the coldness of 9 states to Tianlan. I'm afraid you didn't have good intentions from the beginning, did you? Are you plotting against Xianyuanfeng and the 13th floor? Wang Shengxiao's eyes were calm. He said quietly, It was Tianlan's idea to give me the coldness of 9 states. This was our deal, and I fulfilled the contract. What he said was the truth. It sounded like it. In fact, he didn't say anything when he thought about it carefully. It was a complete nonsense. Lin Fengting smiled. It sounds like it's true. I also hope that it's that simple. But if it's really like what I said. The car stopped beside him. He paused and said slowly, I don't agree with this. If there is such a day, Tianlan and I will wait for you in Warefree Villa. Or you will wait for us on Mount Dibbing. Chapter 8:21. It was early autumn again. It was the rain of early autumn again. The slightly messy rain fell on the streets and alleys of the city, falling on the neon lights lit in the evening, bringing a dense mist. The rain was lazy and casual. The traffic was moving and stopping at the red light, leisurely and quiet. Downstairs, the people who got off work held umbrellas and walked on the rain-soaked stone road, laughing and talking. Young couples walked hand in hand to the nearby snack street, and colleagues discussed what movies to watch after dinner. In front of the small supermarket across the street, the owner of the supermarket held a cigarette and chatted casually with his neighbors in the rain. The students who had just finished school ran across the sidewalk laughing and getting farther and farther away. Qingzhou had always been a leisurely and almost undisciplined city. The extremely slow pace of life allowed everyone living here to integrate into the city, unlike Yuzhou or Huating. There were tens of millions of people in the vast sea of people, and most of them were passers-by in the city. Simple, leisurely, contented and carefree. After a day's work, before leaving, she always liked to stand in front of the window and look at the scenery outside. Every time she saw it, she would always think of what her father had said to her and her brother. Being carefree was the greatest freedom. She didn't understand it back then, and she still didn't understand it now. But she gradually fell in love with the current life, the current city, and the current job. It was raining outside the window. Cheerful footsteps rang in the corridor outside the office. She was in a good mood. After drinking the coffee in the cup, She rinsed the coffee cup and was cleaning up the office when there was a knock on the door. She said, "Come in a soft and pleasant voice. Several young girls who had just started working came in with a smile. "Manager, do you have time in the evening? My relative opened a restaurant. It's very clean and tastes good. I'd like to invite you to have a try." The leading girl said with a chuckle, and her eyes were very intimate. She smiled apologetically and shook her head. "Not today." "Well, where's the restaurant?" "Tomorrow is the weekend. Let's go at noon. How about I treat you?" "I see. Well, I wanted to invite you to watch a movie with me. There's a new movie that's very good recently." The girl was a little regretful. They liked this manager very much. She was very beautiful, not just any kind of beauty, but the kind of beauty that even people of the same sex couldn't have the slightest bit of jealousy. Such beauty didn't have any aggressiveness. Gentle, generous, and demure. Everyone in the company liked this easygoing administrative manager. Compared with the timid male colleagues, most of the women in the company liked to chat with her. Some girls who had just graduated from school in the same department even unconsciously imitated her every word and action. "Maybe next time. I really have something this time." She smiled gently and picked up the small lady's handbag on the table. A low-end lady's handbag that cost 100 or 200 yuan looked a little old, but in her hands, it didn't look cheap at all. "All right." The girls pouted and then laughed. "Manager, we're leaving. Let's watch a movie together next time." "What movie?" A voice came from outside the office. She was stunned, then smiled and said, "President He." The girls lowered their voices. "Hello, President He." Dressed in a business suit with her long hair tied up, He Ishui walked in and smiled. "Are there any good movies recently?" Next during the shift, the president of the Sushui group looked much softer, but facing the boss, the girls in the administrative department were still a little nervous. "There's one. It's a sci-fi movie. It's very good." He Ishui nodded and didn't say anything else. The girls stuck out their tongues, secretly waved at the manager in the office, and rushed out. "Look, you scared them all." Standing in the office, she tilted her head and chuckled. "What? I'm very approachable today, okay?" He Ishui frowned and waved his hand. When he was with her, she seemed a lot younger. She smiled and glanced at the thing in He Ishui's hand. It was a very delicate small gift box. "This is?" She slightly raised her eyebrows. "A gift." He Ishui smiled and said, "A gift for Tide." "Thank you." She smiled and didn't say anything. The friendship between them had been slowly cultivated over a year. At first, she was just an ordinary clerk, and he was the president. When she first came to Sushui for an interview, it was He Ishui who accompanied her through all the procedures. On the first day of work, it was He Ishui who brought her to the company. Then she was transferred to the administrative department, deputy manager, and they became friends, or even best friends. She once asked He Ishui why he treated her so well, and He Ishui's answer was absolutely convincing. Because of her looks. She often thought that the gradual recovery of her mood might be mostly because of Tide, and a small part of it might be because of this best friend in front of her, who was like a sister and a little sister at the same time. She reached out to take the gift. However, He Ishui hid the gift behind his back. "No, this isn't a gift for you. This is for little Tide. Gifts have to be given personally to show sincerity. Let's go freeload. I want to go to your house to freeload." She glared at him and waved the small bag in her hand. "Then let's go. What do you want for dinner?" "I have food in my car." "Let's go in my car. I won't go back tonight." He Ishui followed beside her, his voice very lively because of the joy. She let out a nonchalant hum. "It's still the same thing as last time." The two of them got into He Ishui's car. He Ishui started the car and said with a smile, "Miss Li Mutong, I'm once again inviting you to move to a new house. It's great that you move in with us. My house is very big, and my parents are very welcoming of you. You can go to work during the day, and little Tide can be left at home. There will be someone to take care of her. I have a big family, and I don't need a pair of chopsticks." "No need." Li Mutong shook her head. "It's too troublesome. Besides, I really like where I live now. Although it's a little small, It's very comfortable. What about little Tide? He Ishui glanced at her. I'm going to hire an ant. Li Mutong smiled. There was a warm and dazzling glow on her young and beautiful face. An ant can take care of little Tide during the day. I've installed a surveillance camera. She's a very good person, and she treats little Tide very well. I'm very relieved. I'm really defeated by you. How can an outsider take care of his own people better than an outsider? Li Mutong still shook her head and insisted. An ant is a professional. He Ishui sighed and stopped the topic. There was a moment of silence in the car. All right. He Ishui suddenly said. Do you have any plans for the National Day holiday? Li Mutong thought for a moment. I'll just stay at home and accompany Tide. Isn't that good? What era are we in? He Ishui shook his head. We should go out for a walk. We're in Zhujiang, right? I wanted to go a few years ago, but I didn't have the chance. Usually, when I visit my clients, I'm always in a hurry, so I haven't had the chance to have a good look. Let's go together. Li Mutong shook her head, and her eyes were in a trance. She said absent-mindedly, I still like Qingzhou. Besides, Tide is still young. It's not suitable for her to go out. He Ishui thought about it seriously and said softly, That's true. Children are troublesome, but they are also very cute. Sometimes I envy you, but, she shook her head. Let me be little Tide's godmother. You don't even have a child yourself. Li Mutong laughed. What's wrong with that? He Ishui shook her head, and her face dimmed for a moment. She was already 34 years old this year. She had a failed marriage, but she did not have a child. She used to think that she did not like children, but since she met little Tide, she had changed her mind unconsciously. The black Audi shuttled through the autumn rain, and finally drove into an ordinary residential area in Qingzhou. He Ishui and Li Mutong were busy moving the food from the trunk into the car. In the house that was less than 100 square meters, a kind-looking aunt who looked about 50 years old was slowly walking in the living room with a small baby in her arms. When she saw Li Mutong, she smiled and nodded. Tide just woke up from wetting the bed. She didn't have time to wash up. Let's put her to sleep first. Let me do it. Li Mutong changed her clothes, washed her hands, and carefully held the baby in her arms. The little baby opened his eyes and wrapped one of his fingers. When he saw his mother, he grinned. At this moment, Li Mutong's heart seemed to have completely melted, and she looked even more gentle. She took out the baby's finger, unbuttoned her pajamas with one hand, and fed the baby naturally. He Ishui stayed by Li Mutong's side and carefully touched the baby's face with her finger. She said softly, So beautiful. When she grows up, she will definitely be as charming as you. Li Mutong rolled her eyes at He Ishui and did not say anything. He Ishui looked at the scene quietly, and her eyes were a little complicated. When she first interviewed Li Mutong, she had asked her if she had a boyfriend and if she was married. Li Mutong said that she was not married, and she did not have a boyfriend. She thought that she was pregnant at that time, but she did not know it. The baby was born about 3 months ago. The girl's name was Li Chaoshi. He Ishui also asked her who the father of the baby was, but she did not get an answer. Every time she mentioned the father, Li Mutong would remain silent. At that time, her red lips would be tightly pursed, and she looked a little stubborn, a little wronged, a little confused, but most of all, she was strong. She did not mention her family, and she did not mention the father of the baby. Ishui had many guesses. Maybe she had a complete fallout with her family, because of that bastard man? Or that bastard man dumped Li Mutong and found someone else. But what kind of man would abandon a girl like Li Mutong? Was he blind? Was he her university classmate? Or was Li Mutong cheated? There was no answer, because she had never said anything. He Ishui looked at her best friend who was lowering her head to feed the baby. She gritted her teeth and thought to herself, Don't let me know who the father of that bastard man is, or I will teach him a lesson. Chapter 822. It was snowing in Eastern Europe. The night was long, and it was snowing heavily. Jiang Shangyu liked rain and didn't like snow. It could even be said that he hated snowflakes very much. He didn't like the snow covering the sky and the earth, the cold and the darkness. Coincidentally, the things he didn't like were all in Eastern Europe. And he was in Eastern Europe now. Autumn gradually passed, and Reki City had entered the everlasting night. The darkness existed for 24 hours, accompanied by snowflakes and icy wind. It was bone-chilling. Therefore, Jiang Shangyu rarely left the station of the Snowdance Corps. But once he left, he often had to walk for a long time. He was still the vice-marshal of the Snowdance Corps. After Li Tianlan resigned from the rank of marshal and the position of commander of the Snowdance Corps, he could be said to be the nominal supreme leader here. The parliament of Zhongzhou State had secretly discussed the Snowdance Corps many times. Someone even proposed to let Jiang Shangyu directly become the commander of the Snowdance Corps and grant him the rank of marshal. However, Dongcheng Wudi had been delaying it. Every time he studied it. After nearly 2 years, he still didn't give a clear result. During this period, some of the middle and high-level officers of the Snowdance Corps had been slightly adjusted. Although it didn't affect the overall situation. The officers who were transferred there were basically figures who could help Jiang Shangyu stabilize his position in the Corps. Obviously, more than one giant hoped that Jiang Shangyu could do something in Eastern Europe and the Snowdance Corps. But for nearly 2 years, Jiang Shangyu really did nothing. He stayed in the Snowdance Corps as if he didn't exist at all. He didn't express any opinions at the Corps meeting. Every meeting, he drank a cup of tea until the end of the meeting. Silence was golden. He didn't intervene in the specific affairs of Reki City, or even the 5 countries in Eastern Europe. Since the chaos in Eastern Europe, for nearly 2 years, the relationship between the giants of the giant group and the 5 countries in Eastern Europe had become closer. With the full cooperation of the Flourishing Age Fund, Emperor Dong's palace had completed the shareholding of the giants of the 5 countries in Eastern Europe during this period. Xianyuan City was developing rapidly, and Emperor Dong's palace had begun to take root here quickly. Almost every day, a large amount of money gathered toward Emperor Dong's palace. Jiang Shangyu had been watching silently, keeping his composure and never expressing any opinions. Within the Corps as Jiang Shangyu's secretary, Lu Dongyang increasingly couldn't understand what Jiang Shangyu was doing. He could be said to be the closest person to Jiang Shangyu in the entire Corps. But after getting along with him for more than a year, he had never understood what Jiang Shangyu was thinking. He wasn't pretending. He really didn't care about everything in Eastern Europe, or rather, he didn't care about it at all. Scramble for power? Attack Li Tianlan's team? Become the parliament's bargaining chip in exchange for more support? He really didn't think about it, or rather, he didn't care. Every once in a while, Jiang Shangyu would leave the army station. Asking for leave was symbolic. Every time Dongcheng Wudi approved the documents for leave, it was as timely as sending a text message. Jiang Shangyu really hated the cold and night here, so every time he left, he would look better after coming back. As a major officer of Zhongzhou State, after Lu Dongyang came to the Snowdance Corps, he had no other feeling of being close to a big shot except for the promotion of his military rank. As the secretary of the vice-marshal of the Snowdance Corps, what he did most on weekdays was to take care of Jiang Shangyu's food and drink. Internal affairs of the army? The officers of the legion controlled by Dongcheng Wudi and Li Tianlan did not take Jiang Shangyu seriously. Jiang Shangyu didn't take them seriously. Therefore Lu Dongyang, who was stuck in the middle, became more and more confused. Intensive knocking sounds kept ringing in the office of the vice-marshal of the Snowdance Corps. When Lu Dongyang walked into the conference room with the documents, Jiang Shangyu was staring intently at the screen in front of him, which was originally used for the meeting, and the controller in his hand was clicking. The little man on the screen killed one monster after another with sharp movements. His movements were smooth and pleasing to the eye. Jiang Shangyu was humming happily and playing games. He didn't notice that there was one more person in the office. General. Lu Dongyang felt a little uncomfortable. Every time he saw his immediate boss abandon himself, he felt even more uncomfortable. Dongyang is here. Let's do it. There's a controller next to him. Let's play together. Let me tell you, I defeated the boss of the last level. I studied it all night last night. It was comfortable. Watch me perform this level. F***CK. Jiang Shangyu's complacent smile suddenly changed and he screamed. Lu Dongyang turned his head numbly and glanced at it. The colorful screen had become black and white. The fierce and domineering character in the game had been lying on the ground. Lu Dongyang shook his head and handed over the document in his hand. General, this is the document from the parliament. Take a look. Oh, okay. Jiang Shangyu responded, took the document, and put it aside. The next moment he picked up a guide and muttered, "What kind of skill is it? It's so powerful. I almost have divine equipment, but I was still killed in seconds." General. The corner of Lu Dongyang's mouth twitched and he emphasized, "This is a document from the Parliament of Zhongzhou State." Nonsense. Jiang Shangyu held the guide in his hand. This is obviously a past secret book. Lu Dongyang took a deep breath and said softly, "The Parliament asks you to return to Yuzhou to report on your work and discuss the future allocation of officers of the Snowdance Corps. Reset." Jiang Shangyu paused while flipping through the secret book and narrowed his eyes. Lu Dongyang's eyes flashed with excitement. "General, I think our chance has come." "Yes." Jiang Shangyu nodded casually. "Different from you. I think we're going to die." Lu Dongyang's face changed and he was a little surprised and doubtful. "General, it's been less than 2 years and you can't hold back?" Jiang Shangyu shook his head. "The parliament is powerful, but no matter what, it can't go too far. Isn't Beihai busy enough? Do you want to get Emperor Dong's palace involved again?" He turned off the game, turned on the TV, and adjusted the playback of the news broadcast of Zhongzhou State. On the news, on different occasions, Li Huaqing and Qin Fangqing spoke at the same time, in unison, emphasizing the importance of unity and the local parliament to maintain a high degree of consistency with the parliament of Zhongzhou State. Their words were full of mystery. Jiang Shangyu pointed to the TV. "Look at their faces." Lu Dongyang was a little stunned. "Move against Beihai." In the beginning, it was just moving against Beihai. Now the spearhead has pointed directly at Mount Dibing. Beihai is the bottom line of the Wang family of Beihai, and Mount Dibing is their lifeline. But it's nothing. Zhongzhou State has the right to do so. What about here? Let me go back to Yuzhou to report on my work and study personnel. What is this place? The reason why Xianyuan City can develop so fast in Tiannan is that the capital here is crucial, or even the most important thing. This is Li Tianlan's lifeline. I really can't figure it out. They have one foot on the bottom line of Beihai, and the other on Li Tianlan. Do they really think they can trample these two forces to death? If they can't be trampled to death, the next step is to rebound. He pointed to the TV screen. These two, I can only see greed on their faces. I can be sure that at least one of them has a psychological problem. On the surface, the parliament occupies the highest point of the overall interests of Zhongzhou State. But Li Tianlan, Mount Dibing, the Southeast Group, and the Giant Group, are they really weaker than the Academy and the Prince Group? Li Tianlan can destroy the Qi family for Xianyuan City. Are they not sober enough to instigate me to stand out? He looked at the news on the screen and tooted. Who the hell is it? Do they think I have a long life? Dongyang. He glanced at the secretary beside him and smiled. You've worked hard during this period, but you should work harder next. He touched his face. In the cold air, his face was abnormally pale. I'm not feeling well. Send a document to the army headquarters in my name. I'll apply for a vacation. It'll take about 2 years. That's all. Chapter 823. The Army Ministry of Yuzhou. In the office of the executive minister, Dongqing Wudi frowned slightly. He looked thoughtfully at the facts on the table, and then at Jiang Shangyu on the screen in front of him. His eyes were a little playful. Jiang Shangyu sat quietly on the sofa and looked straight into Dongqing Wudi's eyes with a smile. At this moment, he was not as decadent and happy as when he played games, nor was he as gentle and casual as when he was at the army meeting. He just smiled quietly. There was nothing in his smile, but it seemed to contain everything. Dongqing Wudi couldn't tell what he was thinking at all. Unfathomable. Although he was reluctant to use this word to describe a young man, this was the feeling Jiang Shangyu gave him at this moment. This feeling was subtle. Dongqing Wudi felt a little familiar. It was just like when he saw Qin Weibai for the first time. Deep. Qin Weibai's eyes were deep, cold, and indifferent. She was high and mighty, but it also contained deep affection and persistence like the surging waves. Jiang Shangyu, on the other hand, was only deep, like an abyss, dark and bottomless. Dongqing Wudi took a light breath and knocked on the facts on the table. He said in a deep voice, "Vice Marshal Jiang, are you going to resign?" "No, I'm just asking for a vacation," Jiang Shangyu said calmly, with a very proper and polite posture. "I hope the minister can approve it." 2 years of vacation? Dongqing Wudi asked again. Of course he had to approve it. In fact, Jiang Shangyu's appointment as the vice marshal of the Snowdance Corps had always been a thorn in the heart of the giant group. Today's giant group was going all out to absorb the blood of the 5 Eastern European countries. This was the country that Li Tianlan had fought for. The huge interests in it were also the greatest confidence for Dongqing Wudi to promote Li Tianlan and stabilize his position within the giant group. But there was Jiang Shangyu in the 5 Eastern European countries. Dongqing Wudi couldn't tolerate it at all, but there was no good way for the time being. Fortunately, Jiang Shangyu was very sensible and almost never intervened in the food of the army. But even so, Dongqing Wudi still could not rest assured. Li Tianlan had decided to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. In today's Zhongzhou state, if he really wanted to find a person who could barely balance Li Tianlan, Jiang Shangyu was undoubtedly the only candidate. Dongqing Wudi could fully imagine what the parliament would do when Li Tianlan completely joined forces with the Wang family of Beihai. Compared with attacking Xianyuan City, it was undoubtedly more effective to directly attack the 5 countries in Eastern Europe. And at that time, Jiang Shangyu would also become the most heavyweight chess piece, even within the parliament of Zhongzhou state. There were already rumors that Jiang Shangyu would be promoted to Marshal of Zhongzhou state as an exception. It was impossible that Jiang Shangyu didn't know this. But at such a critical moment, Jiang Shangyu actually wanted to take a vacation. What was the difference between taking 2 years of leave and resigning? Dongqing Wudi could almost see the disappointed faces of Li Huaqing and Chen Fangqing. But for Dongqing Wudi, this was undoubtedly the most satisfactory result. He will certainly approve it. But he had to ask for the reason. Now Jiang Shangyu was a lieutenant general of Zhongzhou state. Even if he did not serve in the Snowdance Corps, he was still a lieutenant general of Zhongzhou state. The army headquarters must give such a person the necessary care. Because of my health. Jiang Shangyu nodded and whispered, "I've always been in poor health, and the climate in Eastern Europe is too bad. It's not suitable for me to cultivate. You should understand." Dongqing Wudi narrowed his eyes. "I need a report. Why are you in poor health? If he was injured, where did he get injured?" "I understand." Jiang Shangyu laughed. This sentence was very interesting. It didn't matter why he was in poor health or where he got injured. Maybe the army headquarters would investigate it in the future, but at this stage it didn't matter. What mattered was that Dongqing Wudi needed a report. The content of the report didn't matter, as long as Dongqing Wudi believed it. At this time, even if Jiang Shangyu wrote in the report that his injury was caused by self-mutilation, Dongqing Wudi could believe it. "The detailed report will be sent to Yuzhou by tonight," Jiang Shangyu said slowly. Dongqing Wudi nodded and said, "My secretary, Comrade Dongyang, is very good. Minister, I haven't been in the Snowdance Corps for a long time, but there are always a few people. I find that they are buried. They are completely suitable for a higher position and are qualified to take on more responsibilities." Jiang Shangyu suddenly said. Dongqing Wudi was stunned. He sat in the chair and didn't speak. Jiang Shangyu. Was he going to take a step back? Dongqing Wudi's eyes flickered. There was no doubt that the list Jiang Shangyu said next was the condition for him to take a step back. 2 years of leave. This was almost equivalent to resignation in disguise. He gave up the position of vice marshal of the Snowdance Corps in exchange for the promotion of a group of people. It could be foreseen that these people would also be in the Snowdance Corps for a long time. When they left the Snowdance Corps, their military ranks would definitely be raised by 1 level. At that time, these people would be Jiang Shangyu's team. Farsighted? Dongqing Wudi preferred to regard this kind of plan as calmness. Jiang Shangyu was really calm. Wang Shengxiao became the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai and played with Zhongzhou state. Li Tianlan became the palace lord of Emperor Dong's palace and occupied Tiannan. As a figure who was almost as famous as them, Jiang Shangyu's mentality was not unbalanced at all. He just made his own plan with peace of mind. He was not shocked by honor or disgrace, and calmly built his own force. 3,000 realms? Dongqing Wudi suddenly asked. Jiang Shangyu was stunned. His eyes were in a trance for a moment, and he laughed. I'm looking forward to it. Dongqing Wudi nodded. The report needs to be postponed for a few days. Jiang Shangyu said. He gave up the position of vice marshal of the Snowdance Corps, and Dongqing Wudi had to hold it in his hands. Even the position of commander of the Snowdance Corps, he had to take it in one go. These days were the time for Dongqing Wudi to operate in secret, and it was also the time for Jiang Shangyu to build his own team. The conflict between the Wang family of Beihai and Zhongzhou state would only become more and more intense. For now, there was no possibility of reconciliation between the two sides for at least a year. Jiang Shangyu could do a lot of things during this period of time. Dongqing Wudi suddenly felt a little emotional. Standing in his position, he had seen too many young talents, such as Li Tianlan, Wang Shengxiao, and many people. But Jiang Shangyu seemed to be the most sober one. He was also the one who knew how to compromise and give in the most. Many people might not understand a truth. Being strong and giving in were actually just means and choices. The most important thing was how much benefit could be gained behind this choice. Even Dongqing Wudi himself was not sure at the moment when he turned off the video. With the conclusion of this deal, in the future, the so-called 3,000 realms would become the 7th group of Zhongzhou state. He stood in the office and thought for a long time before he grabbed the phone and dialed. Minister. Bai Qianzhao quickly answered the phone and said in a serious tone. Dongqing Wudi hummed and asked, Do you want to move? Move. Bai Qianzhao, who was trying his best to take the position of Secretary General of the Army Headquarters and attack the status of a member of Parliament, was a little stunned. Where to? Dongqing Wudi was silent for a while and said, Eastern Europe. Bai Qianzhao was stunned for a long time before he shook his head. I'm not suitable. Dongqing Wudi smiled and said slowly, How about third brother? Chapter 8:24. On the phone, Bai Qianzhao was silent for a long time. The third brother. He remembered this person, but he almost forgot him most of the time. At least in the original plan, the third brother mentioned by Dongqing Wudi could not take a sensitive position in the near future, or even stand in a dazzling position in his life. But Bai Qianzhao would not deny his ability. He is not suitable. Bai Qianzhao hesitated and said slowly, word by word, in a solemn tone. Of course I know. Dongqing Wudi rubbed his eyebrows. But he is the best candidate. Bai Qianzhao was silent again. After Li Tianlan, the commander of the Snowdance Corps should no longer be a marshal, but there was no doubt that he was a general. The Dongqing clan was known as the first wealthy family in the military of Zhongzhou state. More than one person was qualified and capable to be promoted to general. But similarly, more than one person in the Prince Group, the academics, and even the North Group was able to be promoted to general and control the Snowdance Corps. This position was the foundation of Li Tianlan, and an important support for him to control the giant group in the future. Dongqing Wudi had to find a way to get it. In such a situation, the person recommended must be a heavyweight. It couldn't be an ordinary lieutenant general. It couldn't be an ordinary general. Such a candidate must be so strong that as long as Dongqing Wudi proposed it, neither the Prince Group nor the academics could object, and they had no reason to object. They would definitely pass it without any suspense. Such a person needed not only qualifications, but also almost absolute force, as well as unquestionable prestige and military exploits. At present, the academics and the Prince Group did not have such a person. Even if there was, it was impossible for them to leave their current position. But the giant group had one. No one else. Bai Qianzhao asked, What are you thinking about? Dongqing Wudi asked lightly. I know what it means. Bai Qianzhao was a little unhappy. It doesn't matter if I advance or retreat. Even if I can't go further, it will not be a problem to keep my current position. I haven't thought about it. The so-called third brother was Bai Qingzhao's younger brother. If there was no Li Tianlan, he could almost be regarded as the first master in the giant group. If he joined the Snowdance Corps, once his position and identity were exposed, the possibility of Bai Qingzhao becoming the Secretary General and entering the parliament would be greatly reduced. However, that was not what Bai Qingzhao was thinking about. Once the identity of third brother was exposed, the impact would be enough to make many people question the rules that some people had insisted on for many years. It would even cause a new round of impact on the giant group. The impact would be too great. I think it's more useful for third brother to stay in his current position. Bai Qingzhao said, but we can communicate with him. I know that, but I don't have a choice. I can't move. Third brother can't move. Who will go? This matter is too sensitive, and the longer it drags on, the more trouble there will be. I don't want to compete with them again. It's meaningless. There are too many times when we have to go against each other. Now every council meeting has almost become a battlefield. It's meaningless. Dongcheng Wudi said impatiently. Bai Qingzhao thought for a while and said, there is another suitable candidate. Dongcheng Wudi raised his eyebrows. Eagle King of the Li family. Bai Qingzhao smiled. Dongcheng Wudi's eyes flickered thoughtfully. Eagle King of the Li family was now the commander of the garrison of Xianyuan City. More than 20 years ago, when the Li family was at its peak, he was the commander of the Heavenly Eagle Force in Zhongzhou State, the top officer at the lieutenant general level. Tianlan doesn't have any trust crisis in him. His ability is beyond doubt. I've checked the information. At that time, the Heavenly Eagle Force was under the dual management of the Army Headquarters and Zhuanyuantai. The combat environment and the arrangement of military types are somewhat similar to that of the Snowdance Corps. Eagle King himself is also a half-step invincible realm expert. If he goes there, he is more suitable than third brother. Bai Qingzhao said unhurriedly. Dongcheng Wudi took a deep breath and said attentively, Eagle King is good, but I'm afraid that the council won't approve it. He just wanted stability now. He wanted a strong figure who would not be opposed as long as he took out his position. From the point of view of the appointment, third brother was undoubtedly the most stable. There would be no problem with him. He would definitely approve the appointment 100%, or even 120%. And Eagle King. What are you afraid of? Bai Qingzhao sneered. Tianlan is still in prison, and he hasn't made it clear that he wants to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. Eastern Europe is Tianlan's territory. Now that Eagle King is going there, why should they object? Dongcheng Wudi nodded and then shook his head. Appointing Eagle King as the commander of the Snowdance Corps, there was at least a 70% to 80% chance of success. The most important point was that Li Tianlan had not made a clear statement. If Li Huaqing objected, it would only push Li Tianlan to the Wang family of Beihai. So if he took out Eagle King, he could indirectly verify the other party's attitude? Was it a favor at no cost? Or was it a suppression to the end? If it doesn't work, there are still the 5 Eastern European countries. No matter how vassal they are only nominally allies of Zhongzhou State. The Snowdance Corps is equivalent to a garrison. It won't be a problem to go through the channels of the 5 Eastern European countries to put some pressure on Zhongzhou State. Dongcheng Wudi thought about it and finally nodded. We can try. I think Eagle King is fine. He is getting stronger with age. It's not a big problem for him to stand up to Jiang Shangyu. Bai Qingzhao said with a smile. Dongcheng Wudi smiled. Don't worry about Jiang Shangyu. I just talked to him on the phone. He said that he was in poor health and couldn't adapt to the environment in Eastern Europe. He planned to take a 2-year vacation. I'm ready to approve it. Bai Qingzhao was stunned. He had never thought that Jiang Shangyu would resign. Although Jiang Shangyu had not done anything in Eastern Europe, that place was too important after all. The giant group had never let down its guard against Jiang Shangyu. In more than a year, there had been very few personnel transfers in the Snowdance Corps, which had something to do with the existence of Jiang Shangyu. As one of the most eye-catching young people in Zhongzhou State today, even if Jiang Shangyu was not as dazzling as Li Tianlan and Wang Shengshao, his evaluation in the outside world had gradually surpassed Gu Hanzhan. When it came to him, Not to mention that the giant group was on guard. Even the parliament of Zhongzhou state might not be completely at ease with him. And now he had resigned? What are his conditions? Bai Qingzhao asked. He wants to promote a group of people who belong to him in the Snowdance Corps. This person is thoughtful and doesn't care about the gains and losses of the Snowdance Corps. I'm afraid he wants to form his own team. Dongcheng Wudi shook his head. Anyway, at least for now, it's a good thing. Bai Qingzhao said yes and hung up the phone. Dongcheng Wudi picked up Jiang Shangyu's vacation report again. After thinking about it, he sent it to the desert prison. In the desert prison, Qin Weibai, who got the facts as soon as possible, read the vacation report word by word. She put the report on the table, narrowed her bright and dreamy eyes and murmured, "Is it going to start?" Chapter 8:25. Jiang Shangyu's leave report caused an unimaginable uproar in the entire upper echelon of Zhongzhou state. Jiang Shangyu's status alone might not be so important. But the most important thing was that for many people, it was a very critical signal. It took less than 3 days for Jiang Shangyu's second report to be submitted to the military headquarters again. The report was personally drafted by him, and explained in detail the reason why he needed to take a leave, his physical condition, and the reasons that led to this condition. It was reasonable and evidence-based. If one only looked at the report, one would not find any logical flaws. Dongcheng Wudi was very satisfied with this. This was indeed a watertight person. Once this report was handed in, as long as Jiang Shangyu insisted on leaving, there was no reason for the parliament to disagree. Dongcheng Wudi kept the report for about half a month. In the process of many secret operations, Jiang Shangyu was unexpectedly a little anxious. He seemed to be fed up with the cold weather and long darkness in Eastern Europe. He didn't want to stay in Eastern Europe for a moment. He contacted Dongcheng Wudi several times in a row, hoping that the parliament and the army headquarters could approve his report as soon as possible. For nearly a month, Dongcheng Wudi communicated with several important figures of the Southeast Group many times and flew to Tiannan in person. Just after the Mid-Autumn Festival, Dongcheng Wudi finally signed his name on the report. The report that had been in his office for more than a month was directly passed from the army headquarters to the Hidden Dragon Sea. It was the beginning of the month. It was the perfect time to hold a parliamentary discussion. The Hidden Dragon Sea held a parliamentary meeting as soon as it received the leave report. It was not only because of Jiang Shangyu's long leave that people thought he was crazy. It was also because of Eastern Europe. Because of the significance of Eastern Europe to Li Tianlan and the giant group. At the meeting, Li Huaqing personally contacted Jiang Shangyu, who was in Eastern Europe, and asked him in detail about the reason for his leave, as if he had never seen the report. Jiang Shangyu's answer was highly consistent with the report. His tone was sincere and his attitude was very firm. Li Huaqing encouraged Jiang Shangyu, but there was undisguised disappointment in his subtle expression. The position of commander of the Snowdance Corps had been vacant for more than a year, and the biggest reason was because of Jiang Shangyu. The parliament intended to let Jiang Shangyu be promoted to army commander, but the giant group had always strongly opposed it. Moreover, Jiang Shangyu had a deep mind. Li Huaqing inevitably hesitated and did not insist on this appointment. In fact, Wang Shengxiao had a clear position first, and Li Tianlan had an ambiguous attitude. When facing Jiang Shangyu, both Li Huaqing and Chen Fangqing had some concerns. For them, the perfect result was that Jiang Shangyu would not join the army. He held the position of commander-in-chief, but he stayed in Eastern Europe as a vice-marshal. His laziness was very much in line with their wishes. Laziness did not compete for power, but it did not mean that his existence was not a deterrent. With Jiang Shangyu's ability, as long as he stayed in the Snowdance Corps, even if he did nothing, Li Tianlan and the giant group would not be completely at ease. At that time, as long as they could get closer to Jiang Shangyu, they would have more bargaining chips when facing Li Tianlan. The balance was almost perfect. However, Jiang Shangyu took the initiative to break the balance. Leave. 2 years. Dongcheng Wudi was ecstatic. Li Huaqing was extremely disappointed. For the time being, he did not understand what this leave meant. But even if it did not mean that Jiang Shangyu was close to the giant group, At least it proved that Jiang Shangyu officially and completely withdrew from the game between the parliament and Beihai, and refused to be a pawn of the Zhongzhou state parliament. He was far away in Eastern Europe, which seemed not to be the key, but his position determined whether Li Tianlan could really have the final say in the giant group in the future. In fact, when many people were staring at this game, they were also silently watching Jiang Shangyu, wanting to see what he could do. Then people saw his resignation. This kind of signal was so obvious. Li Huaqing could imagine that when the news spread out, some forces who decided to unite with the Zhongzhou state parliament after many hesitations would definitely have a change of heart. He was afraid that more people would also withdraw from this game under the influence of Jiang Shangyu's resignation. And they also had to spend more energy to integrate their camp and unite all forces to launch a general attack on the Wang family of Beihai. But all of this took time. There was less than a year before next year's election, and the so-called consideration on Li Tianlan's side could not be delayed for too long. What they lacked most now was time. Jiang Shangyu's action could be said to have disrupted their plan to a certain extent. Beihai province. When would the chaos they had been looking forward to break out? Li Huaqing was a little irritable. This kind of irritation even showed up at the meeting. And Dongqing Wudi proposed the new commander of the Snowdance Corps at the first moment when his mind was wavering. The former commander of the Heavenly Eagle Force in Zhongzhou State. The Heavenly Eagle of the Li family. Yang Peng. There was no preparation in advance. Dongqing Wudi naturally proposed this candidate, which was a surprise attack. But no one objected. And no one agreed. There was a very strange silence in the conference room. In Jiang. Before Jiang Shangyu's report came to the Hidden Dragon Sea, today's meeting was still about personnel, but it was about the personnel of the Southeast Group and the Giant Group. This time, it was not to shuffle and weaken them. Li Huaqing and Chen Fangqing made up their minds to adjust at least a few heavyweight positions. For this reason, they even got the support of the Beihai Group. 2 members of the Beihai Group agreed to be the vanguard and take the lead. Now, as soon as Jiang Shangyu's leave report came out, the 2 members of the Beihai Group, who had been ready, suddenly became silent. Dongqing Wudi had taken the initiative of the whole meeting. Sky Eagle Yang Peng as the commander of the Snowdance Corps? This seemed to be an internal handover of the giant group, but in the long run, it meant too many things. No one wanted to agree, but no one dared to object. In the long silence, Li Huaqing decided to vote. He would not provoke Li Tianlan at this time, but he would not agree to this appointment. So the vote on Eagle King at the meeting had the most dramatic result in recent years. Li Huaqing agreed to the appointment. But Hua Zhenyang, another giant of the academics, objected. Director Guo Wentian of the Prince Group supported it. Prime Minister Chen Fangqing objected. A director of the Southeast Group was absent at this meeting. At the same time, at this meeting, Wang Qinglei objected to the appointment, and the members of the giant group also objected. Different voices appeared at the same time in their respective groups. Li Huaqing did not even look at the statistical results. He pondered for a moment and finally said that because of the big differences, the appointment was postponed. After temporarily putting this matter aside, Li Huaqing did not discuss other personnel issues, but chose to dismiss the meeting directly. The news of Jiang Shangyu's resignation had spread throughout Zhongzhou State that day. The violent shock lasted for nearly half a month. Li Huaqing and Chen Fangqing left Yuzhou together again, and went to different provinces in Zhongzhou State for inspection. The continuous inspection lasted for more than a month, under the watchful eyes of countless people. On the second day after the 2 giants returned to Yuzhou, the relatively clear news finally came out. The news did not come from the Hidden Dragon Sea. It came from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs made it clear that Wang Qinglei, a member of the Parliament of Zhongzhou State and the Speaker of Wuyue Province, would visit the 3 European countries in the near future. England, Germany, and Italos. Autumn was coming to an end. Winter was coming. Chapter 826. The early winter brought with it the first snow. The winter in Beihai was extremely cold. Wang Shengxiao, who had already put on his coat, stood on the stage a formidable person. Looking at the calm surface of the North Sea, he exhaled a breath of white air and asked, "Where is Wang Qinglei?" "Next stop is Italos." Xianming stood behind Wang Shengxiao and glanced at Lu Shuanghua intentionally or unintentionally. Seeing that Lu Shuanghua had no intention to speak, he replied, "When he was in England, he visited the Rothschild family." The corners of Wang Shengxiao's mouth twitched in a mocking manner. After the chaos in Eastern Europe, the Shadow Throne, which once dominated the dark world of Europe and could oppose the Vatican tit for tat, had long fallen apart. However, Rothschild was still the top wealthy family in Europe. Even if Queen Qingtong of the Dark Shadow was disabled by Li Tianlan and Patriarch Paul was seriously injured by Li Tianlan, their position in Europe was still deeply rooted. There might still be crises, but the system of Europe was different from that of Zhongzhou state. It was enough for Rothschild to face everything calmly and not be overwhelmed. Rothschild had a good relationship with the Wang family of Beihai. Wang Qinglei was also a member of the Wang family of Beihai. On this trip to England, it was unlikely that he would win the support of Rothschild. Wang Qinglei probably wanted a neutral attitude. Maybe he didn't know Paul well enough. But Wang Xiaoyao, who was also a direct descendant, had this face. If this kind of strong aid helped the Wang family of Beihai, there would be too many variables. No one would feel indifferent. If Rothschild could stand aside, the pressure Wang Qinglei faced would be much less. Patriarch Rothschild. Xianming wanted to say something but hesitated. Wang Shengxiao shook his head and said in a calm tone, "I just talked to Patriarch Paul on the phone. The Rothschild family is not peaceful at the moment. Moreover, Paul and Qingtong are both recovering from their injuries and can't take action. So the Rothschild family can't give us any support this time." Xianming nodded and didn't say anything. It was a good thing to have Rothschild's help. But without them, Mount Dibbing could accept it. He was most worried that Rothschild would be persuaded by Wang Qinglei. Now it seemed that Wang Shengxiao meant that Rothschild might not help him, but at least he would not help Wang Qinglei. This was a result that both sides could accept. "Is there any other news?" Wang Shengxiao asked softly. About Wang Xiaoyao." Xianming paused. After a pause, he said quietly, "We have received accurate information that Wang Xiaoyao is currently paying attention to Dalos. To be more precise, he is in the sanctuary. Not only him, but Jiang Guochu and Yagyu Kuromi are also in the Holy Land." Although Tianhai Wuji is still in East Island, a deputy palace master of Wuji Palace is already on his way to Europe. Wang Xingxiao took a deep breath and remained silent for a long time. The invisible yet tangible pressure was getting closer and closer. His eyes were looking in the direction of Europe, cold and indifferent. Wang Qinglei. Wang Tianzong had been on guard against him before, but had no time to deal with him. After drawing a clear line with the Southeast group, Wang Tianzong officially became the enemy of Mount Dibbing. Everyone knew why he was visiting Europe. The whole world knew. His goal was clear. Wang Xiaoyao, the Vatican Knights Templars, the Jiang family of South America, Jifeng Sword Raining School, Wuji Palace. Everyone was focused on Dalos and waiting for Wang Qinglei. Then, it was time for an all-out attack. The entire North Sea province was the battlefield. A reign of terror. The world was turned upside down. Wang Shengxiao smiled. His smile was like the first snow falling from the sky, gentle but extremely cold. "It won't be that easy," he muttered to himself and repeated. "It won't be that easy." The all-out attack launched by several superpowers was about to begin. But before that, Wang Shengxiao wanted to give them a surprise. A big surprise. "How's the situation in Zhongzhou state?" Wang Shengxiao asked in a low voice. "It's not bad." Lu Shuanghua, who was standing with Xianming, thought for a while and said, "We have a tacit understanding with the giant group. And now it seems that the reaction caused by Jiang Shangyu's resignation is unexpectedly good. Many forces who have been interested in standing with Zhongzhou state have shown varying degrees of hesitation. Some powerful families have even completely withdrawn from this action. This should also be This should also be the reason why Wang Qinglei is in a hurry to visit the 3 European countries." Wang Shengxiao said yes. The strength of the Wang family of Beihai and the Southeast group had long been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people in Zhongzhou state. No matter how powerful the parliament was, The forces that they roped in would inevitably feel uneasy. When a sensitive person made a sensitive choice, their originally shaky hearts would naturally become even more anxious. Gavin's heart wavered. Jiang Shangyu was a sensitive person who made a sensitive choice in a sensitive period. His choice would naturally affect some people. This kind of inner wavering and apprehension was not something that could be reversed with the so-called ideological work. Therefore, while the giant group and the academics were busy wooing people, they were also speeding up the plan. Most of the issues in the war in Beihai would be settled during Wang Qinglei's visit. As long as chaos broke out, the wealthy families who were wavering but did not withdraw would have little choice. How about Emperor Dong's palace? Wang Shengxiao asked. We have been in touch with Emperor Dong's palace. At present, they have confirmed that the first batch of nearly 600 elites will be led by Du Hanin and Su Chu to support Beihai province. But Emperor Dong's palace wants to see our actions first. Lu Shuanghua furrowed her brows and said in a quick tone. Du Hanin was a core high-level member of Emperor Dong's palace. Although Su Chu was not in charge, he was also one of the high-level members. Moreover, Su Chu had been in the thunder-shocking realm for many years. During the final battle in Heaven Capital more than 4 years ago, he had already vaguely had the strength to fight against the peak of the thunder-shocking realm. Now he was even not weaker than the ordinary half-step invincible realm experts. Du Hanin had the wind vein, and it was a mutated wind vein to a certain extent. Although she had not reached the peak of the thunder-shocking realm, she could already be said to be the top assassin in Sai City or Emperor Dong's palace. Is this the only group of people? Wang Shengxiao frowned and seemed to be a little disappointed. The second list is being worked out. If nothing goes wrong, it should be by Yu Ming who will lead the team. Lu Shuanghua continued, but the premise remains the same. The so-called premise was that Emperor Dong's palace should first see the actions of the Wang family of Beihai. The early intelligence had been given out. For example, Wang Shengxiao wanted to do something to prove Mount Dibing's determination in this war and game. Okay. Wang Shengxiao nodded. How are your preparations going? Very good. Xianming grinned grimly. We have now locked down nearly 600 lurkers. As long as the patriarch says so, within 3 hours, they will all become corpses. Nice gift. Wang Shengxiao said calmly, since the distinguished guests haven't arrived yet, let's hurry up and deliver it to them. Tell them that the Wang family of Beihai welcomes them to come to Beihai to die. Chapter 827. Even the purest affection had different standpoints. Seng Yu was an electrical engineer in Qiushui City. He was nearly 50 years old, and had been working in Qiushui City for more than 20 years. The Wang family of Beihai, which treated every inch of land in Beihai province as its own, was a little different from Zhongzhou State. All kinds of technical talents could basically find a good job in Beihai. The so-called stars were not popular in Beihai. The most dazzling figure here was Sword Emperor. No one dared to say that Sword Emperor Wang Tianzong was a star. For more than 20 years, Wang Tianzong was like the sun in the hearts of more than 20 million people in Beihai province. This was the most rigorous and pragmatic province in the whole of Zhongzhou State. There were no fancy things. As long as one had real talent, one could quickly find a place to settle down here. Therefore, Tseng Yu lived a good life. He married a woman from Beihai here and had a daughter who was in high school. His wife was gentle and his daughter had good grades. Such a family might not be able to call the wind and summon the rain, but there was always a touch of comfort and happiness in their daily life. Tseng Yu was very satisfied with the present life. But he was very dissatisfied with the present life. He lived here and felt comfortable with everything here. But this kind of comfort was not the kind of comfort he imagined. Tseng Yu's deepest impression was that he took his family to Europe for a vacation 3 years ago. In a restaurant in France, a very polite waiter asked him politely when recommending the menu, "Sir, are you from Zhongzhou State, East Island, or Beihai? Are you from Zhongzhou State or Beihai?" This sentence was like a knife, stabbing Tseng Yu's heart hard. His wife looked proud and wanted to say something. That kind of pride was faint but real. It might not be contempt, but it was really an objective sense of superiority. People from Beihai had such a faint sense of superiority to people from all over Zhengzhou State and all over the world. But Sun Yu interrupted his wife and said very seriously, "I'm from Beihai, Zhengzhou State." Yes, he was from Zhengzhou State first. Then he was from Beihai. Beihai belonged to Zhengzhou State. This was the belief that he had always insisted in his heart. This belief had existed for many years. But he was increasingly sad to find that the sacred and solemn belief he insisted on was becoming weaker and weaker in Beihai. The people of Beihai also admitted that Beihai belonged to Zhengzhou State. But no matter what, the first thing they talked about was the North Sea. The happiness of Tsung Yu's family was also in Beihai. He used to be immersed in happiness, but when he came back to his senses, he always felt that his happiness had a sense of alienation, as if he was being rejected by the entire province. He is Zheng Yu, an electrical engineer in Qiushui City, Beihai. Master. He was Zheng Yu, a member of the 7th team of the 9th Division of the 11th Department of the Zhengzhou State Ministry of Security. His code name was Gopher. In recent years, it was true that Fan Tianyin, the general of the Wang family of Beihai, was the minister of the Ministry of Security. But in such a sensitive and powerful department, even the minister could not master many things in detail. It could even be said that he did not have the authority to master them. The Ministry of State Security did have an 11th division. There was indeed a 9th room in the 11th game. All of this information could be found on the internet. However, even Fan Tianyin did not know that there was a 7th team within the 9th Bureau of the 11th Bureau. This establishment did not exist at all. Zheng Yu was the deputy team leader of Team 7, with the rank of colonel. Just from his rank, one could see the value of Team 7. More than 20 years ago, when he was still very young, he was one of the executors of the hibernation plan. Zheng Yu did not know the specific goal of the hibernation plan, and he did not even know how many people there were in his 7th team. There were only 2 team members who contacted him on a daily basis. Now, even in the public eye, they were friends who had a good relationship. As for his direct leader, the patriarch of Team 7, Zheng Yu did not know who he was. For more than 20 years, all their communication was encrypted phone calls or emails. And Zheng Yu's task was to lurk in Qiushui City and try to master everything about Qiushui City. Yes, everything. It was a huge and confusing range. The operation of Qiushui City, the relationship between people, the state of people's livelihood, even the price rise or fall, and the staff replacement of the Qiushui City government. Everything was in it. Zheng Yu would write a report every year, and then he would wait. Hibernation. When the flowers bloomed in the spring. He knew a lot about Qiushui City and Beihai. The more he knew, the more confused he was. Because for the people living in Beihai, this place was really beautiful, and the people here did have the confidence to be proud. Let's take the simplest example. In more than 20 years in Qiushui City, there had been 16 cases of corruption and bribery in Qiushui City. The largest amount of corruption was 60 million yuan. The smallest amount was 310,000 yuan. 16 corrupt officials. All of them were executed within half a month after the incident. Without exception. For corruption and bribery, the only punishment in Beihai was the death penalty. There was no second punishment, regardless of the amount. Beihai's strict restrictions on officials were almost cruel, which was rare in the world. Similarly, Beihai's benefits for officials were so rich that they were almost luxurious, which was also rare in the world. In the real data released by Beihai, the annual salary of Wen Siyuan, a member of Zhengzhou State and the Speaker of Beihai Province, was 46 million Zhengzhou dollars. Yes, that's 46 million. Yes, it was real. The governor of Beihai Province also enjoyed this annual salary. The Speaker and Mayor of Qiushui City received the 3rd tier of civil servants in Beihai, 27 million yuan. All the way down to the grassroots, the annual salary of an ordinary staff in a department in Qiushui City was 750,000 Zhengzhou dollars. Plus various benefits on weekdays and holidays, the annual salary of an ordinary staff at the grassroots level was nearly 1 million. The treatment of the People's Police, Fire Police, Armed Police, and the Army was higher. High salary, honesty and cruel management of officials. Beihai could be said to have done the best in this regard. The absolute high salary had been consuming the financial resources of Mount Dibing, and Mount Dibing was replenishing it from other places. It was a continuous cycle, which directly led to the simplification and efficiency of various institutions in Beihai under the control of Mount Dibing. There were 8 deputy governors in Beihai. At the city level, there were usually only 3 to 4 deputy government officials, and there were no temporary workers. Everyone was doing their best in their positions, and there was almost no bootlicking. The civilians living here were very happy, because their problems would be completely solved by the government in the shortest time possible. The businessmen who invested here were very happy, because all the rules were clearly in front of them. What they wanted to do, they had to go through the approval procedures. If they could do it, they could do it. If they couldn't, they couldn't. It was straightforward. The civil servants living here were very at ease. As long as they did things seriously, they would have the opportunity to be promoted. The government was clean, and the whole Beihai was positive. Compared with Zhongzhou State, it was more like a real utopia. For hundreds of years, the huge wealth of Beihai was completely used in every field and every corner of Beihai. It was no exaggeration to say that it had now become the most promising province in Zhongzhou State. Because it was the best. It was the result of Beihai province's unremitting efforts for hundreds of years. However, in Sun Yu's view, this kind of development had now reached the bottleneck and limit. There were only 2 ways ahead of Beihai. One was to be completely accepted by Zhongzhou State, and Zhongzhou State would learn from the experience of Beihai and use its resources to slowly promote some of its models throughout Zhongzhou State. This possibility was undoubtedly a real spring day for Zhongzhou State. The other result was that Beihai would continue to absorb the resources of Zhongzhou State. Beihai would become stronger and stronger, and eventually turn from guest to host, making Zhongzhou State a part of Beihai. For Zhongzhou State, this was a real cold winter. Sun Yu had never forgotten his duty and identity. So after many years, as soon as the hibernation plan became the awakening plan, he did not hesitate to hand over all the resources he had mastered over the years. The hibernation plan had become the awakening plan. Late at night, Sun Yu sat calmly in the study and wrote a letter seriously. Chapter 828. The snow outside the window fell on the ground. The pen in his hand fell on it. It made a rustling sound. Sun Yu's expression was focused and solemn. The content he wrote in his hand was a bunch of meaningless gibberish in the eyes of others. It needed a corresponding set of code words to translate. It was all about the situation in Qiushui City. His thinking was smooth and clear, and there was no pause in his writing. The Beihai he liked was the Beihai of Zhongzhou State. It was destined to be the coldest time before the warm spring flowers bloomed. If this cold could be endured by Beihai in exchange for a better Zhongzhou State and a better future, it was definitely worth it. He couldn't represent anyone, and he couldn't make decisions for Beihai. But this was his personal thought and will. Just like the letter he was writing now, it was only his personal thought and will. In more than 20 years, the top spy in the coat of an electrodynamics engineer had nearly 30 loyal men of sacrifice in his hands. He himself was an expert at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm. He used all the resources in his hands to form a detailed network of contacts. And this network occupied most of the content of his letter. He really liked Beihai that completely belonged to Zhongzhou State. This game had nothing to do with right or wrong, justice or evil, greatness or despicableness. There was only victory or defeat, only the result. He thought this result was right, so he went all out without reservation. If they could succeed, decades later, when they were old, they might be able to proudly tell their descendants that it was they who led the future direction and path of Beihai. The letter was very long. Sun Yu changed several sheets of letter paper. The hibernation plan was over. This should be the last report before the awakening plan was launched, so Sun Yu took out all the chips in his heart. He had nearly 30 men of sacrifice. Beside him were 2 of his colleagues who had participated in the hibernation plan with him. Now one of them was already a high-ranking official in the Qiushui city government, while the other was a famous doctor in Qiushui. Both of them had also secretly cultivated their own team. Due to excessive caution, the scale of such a team was not large. The three of them added up the number of people they could use was about 80. But also because of caution, these dozens of people were completely trusted confidants. As the deputy team leader of Team 7, who had been lurking in autumn water, Seungyu had spent a long time researching what kind of effect these people could have when they were put together. From the very beginning until now, over 20 years had passed. Seungyu had been pondering over the countless combinations that could play an incomparably huge role. And this was what he was writing in the letter now. If he gave it his all, he and his two colleagues could assassinate 2 second-level targets, 5 third-level targets, and some other key figures in Chioshui City in 6 hours. They could make Chioshui City fall into the greatest chaos in the first place. The so-called second-level assassination target was Seungyu's own standard. In his mind, there were 6 second-level targets in Chioshui City. The mayor and the speaker of Chioshui City were second-level targets, and there were several core members of the Huangfu family in Chioshui City. The first-level target was the patriarch of the Huangfu family. Seungyu was confident to assassinate the 2 second-level targets. One was the mayor of Chioshui City, and the other was a core member of the Huangfu family. Once these 2 people died, the entire Chioshui City would be completely shocked within a few hours. In order to track down the murderer, the Huangfu family must take a series of measures, and they could not care about the action of Mount Dibbing and similar lurking groups. Seungyu could be sure that there was at least one group in Chioshui City, and other cities in Beihai Province should also have such lurking groups. As long as they took action, the entire Beihai would be in darkness. Seungyu took a deep breath and thought of his life in Beihai for more than 20 years. A touch of pity flashed in his heart, and then he became firm. He picked up the pen again. Without using code words, he directly wrote 4 words at the end of the letter. For Zhengzhou State. He looked at the signature on the letter, carefully recalled the content of the letter, and said with some satisfaction, "Not bad." Behind him, another person also said with satisfaction, "Not bad." In the dead of night, there was only the sound of falling snow outside the window. The sudden praise fell in Seungyu's ears like a thunder. His brain became blank in an instant, and his body tensed up. The power of the peak of the thunder-shocking realm was condensed completely out of instinct. A dazzling electric arc flashed in his hand. He reached out. Attack! Hum! A muffled groan of extreme pain sounded. Seungyu's attack did not cause any movement. The dazzling electric arc became extremely weak at the moment he attacked. He raised his arm, and then it flew out. Blood sprayed directly on the ground from the broken arm. In the light footsteps, a slender hand with a scar on the back of the hand reached out and took away the letter he had just written. Seungyu, whose face was distorted because of the pain, was still at a loss. He turned his head carefully. Standing in his line of sight was a tall, short-haired woman with a long scar on her face, expressionless. She held the letter and lowered her head to read the contents. After a long while, she slowly said, "I don't understand." Seungyu's body trembled involuntarily in pain. He gritted his teeth and was about to say something harsh, but the woman had directly thrown the letter in her hand in another direction. "Explain, what do you mean?" Seungyu wanted to turn his body in that direction, but as soon as he moved one leg, the heart-wrenching pain suddenly spread from his leg to his brain. There was no raging fire, no thunder, no vibration of the air around him. And it was not the domain of the invincible realm. He did not feel any danger. But at this moment, it seemed that everything around him was dangerous. It was as if his body was tightly bound by an incomparably sharp but invisible rope. Even the slightest movement would cause him to bleed profusely, and he might even be torn to pieces. He glanced at the woman beside him out of the corner of his eye. She stood quietly, but the aura all over her body was like that of a fierce and silent beast. At this moment, Seungyu did not think about who she was. He was curious as to how the other party had come and how they knew his identity. "This is our code word." A hoarse voice sounded behind Seungyu. The trembling voice was filled with extreme fear and pain. "This is a network of contacts, all of which belong to the men of sacrifice trained by him and the other 2 team members. The letter The letter wrote the identity of the men of sacrifice and what they could do together. What is it? The beast-like short-haired woman asked in a flat tone. She stood there like a real beast, light, sharp, calm, and incomparably ferocious. The seventh team. The voice behind him was silent for a while. No one knew whether it was hesitation or to ease the pain. The third member of the seventh team is now the secretary of the mayor of Chioshui City. Do you know what you are doing? Sung Yu suddenly growled in a sharp voice. He opened his eyes wide, and his eyes were full of disbelief. His letter was written in their own code word. To be exact, it was the code word of the seventh team. Except for the members of their team, no one could understand the content of the code word. There were 4 members in the seventh team. He was the deputy captain and number 2. The identity of number 3 had been revealed. He was very familiar with number 4 and his voice. The voice behind him was not the voice of number 4. The only answer. He was the leader of the seventh team. Everything had an answer. Sung Yu finally knew why the beast around him would find him here. She caught the leader of the seventh team. Ironically, even Sung Yu did not know who the leader was. So how did she know? Shut up. The woman waved her hand. Sung Yu also could not feel any fluctuations in martial arts. He could not see the slightest light and shadow, but his whole body was completely imprisoned in an instant. He could not say a word. Go on. She casually walked a few steps and pointed to the letter. In the corner where Sung Yu could not see, the intermittent voice became more and more frightened and dry, but also clearer and clearer. Clearly, he read the letter almost word by word. Sung Yu's face was ashen. It was hard for him to believe that the seventh team had such a spineless patriarch. The woman listened silently and then waved her hand again. The invisible imprisonment disappeared in an instant. Sung Yu regained the ability to speak. You want to play big? The woman looked at him with a playful look in her eyes. If it was before, I would be very happy to see this scene, but I promised my sister. She suddenly shook her head in annoyance and lost interest in continuing. She just said, "Is what he said true? Do you have anything to add?" "Who are you?" Sung Yu turned his head slightly. His face was instantly drenched in blood, coupled with his resentful and despairing eyes. He looked incomparably ferocious. "Xia Huang," the woman said faintly, "Xiaji's sister." Sung Yu smiled bitterly. "When did you?" His cell phone suddenly rang. Phoenix frowned, took out the phone, looked at the number, and directly answered. "What's the matter?" "Auntie, how is Chioshui City?" Wang Shengxiao's voice came from the phone, cold and gloomy. "The seventh team has been solved, but I'm not sure if there are other teams," Phoenix said calmly. "Ask." Wang Shengxiao took a deep breath. There was obvious anger and killing intent in his voice, but he was trying hard to restrain himself. "Ask the leader of the seventh team about the latest task they received. How is the implementation going? Is there any clue?" Wang Shengxiao's voice could be said to be said with a pause, and Phoenix could even clearly feel the sound of his teeth gritting. "The latest task? What task?" Phoenix glanced at the leader of the seventh team. The patriarch, who had already had a nervous breakdown, shook his head blankly. "He doesn't know," Phoenix said directly. He didn't believe that the other party would dare to lie in his hands. He probably didn't receive the task. So there must be another team in Chioshui City, Wang Shengxiao sneered. "Maybe," Phoenix nodded. "I'll take the people of the seventh team back. You can ask carefully." "No need." Wang Shengxiao's voice was cold. "Kill them all." Phoenix was slightly stunned. Kill them all? This was completely different from the original plan. These were all people from Zhongzhou State, especially the leader of the seventh team, who was only half a step away from being a general. Kill them all? Phoenix narrowed her eyes. Are you sure? These are all Zhongzhou State. Kill them all. Send the bodies back to Zhongzhou State. These bastards, they are now looking for Yuedong. The latest task this group of people received is to kill Yuedong. They deserve to die. They all deserve to die. Wang Shengxiao suddenly roared. Kill them all. Phoenix was stunned for a moment and silently hung up the phone. Sung Yu, who had heard the rage of the new patriarch of Beihai, looked stupefied. He looked at Phoenix in front of him without saying a word. "It seems that you are very determined," Phoenix said slowly. "So determined." She slowly raised her hand. She flicked her fingers gently. Phoenix's voice became the only sound in Seung-yu's ears. "Do you really want to die so badly?" Seung-yu opened his eyes wide. Before he died, his keen and incredible observation finally allowed him to discover the way this woman attacked. In the stable space, there seemed to be a grain on her finger. It was sparkling and translucent, like a tiny ice crystal that was hard to notice. The ice crystal landed on his body. Suddenly, there was only a surging tide in his ears. The surging tide was a dazzling scarlet red. The blood all over Seung-yu's body burst out in an instant. Countless amounts of blood gathered and compressed in the air, fell into Phoenix's hand, and turned into a crystal-clear scarlet bead. Phoenix directly threw the bead into her mouth and ate it. She said calmly, "Then go to hell." Chapter 829. A repressed and distorted voice filled with extreme pain echoed in the pale white room. A fine column of blood splashed in the room, fell to the ground, and flowed along the floor. The sharp and thin blade slowly cut open the flesh, and pieces of broken bones and tendons were slowly picked out one by one. Twitching, struggling, trembling, gasping, the pain was extreme, and the sound made by the man was close to the whimper of a dying beast. His eyes had cracked, his teeth had been bitten, and the blade had completely destroyed one of his calves. In the repeated cycle of pain, he could even clearly feel that his body was patiently destroyed little by little, and he could clearly hear the sound of blood flowing on the ground. In front of him was a pair of indifferent eyes. This pair of eyes was very young, but they contained an extremely cruel killing intent and madness. He gasped hard, and his pupils had become a little dim. But when he looked into the eyes, there was still an unyielding look. "You won't die, Major General." In the low murmur like a demon, the young eyes blinked. At least not for the time being. An injection pierced into his body. The thick liquid seemed to have endless vitality. When the drug entered his body, he felt cool, and his spirit was completely restored. No, not only a complete recovery, but a state of excitement beyond the past. He could feel every corner of his body, every bit of pain. The heart-wrenching, lung-splitting pain was transmitted to his brain. Every breath he took was accompanied by unimaginable pain. He knew what it was. Zhongzhou State also had this kind of drug, codenamed torture. At first, it was the formula provided by the Wang family of Beihai. Torture was not a drug for combatants. Just like its codename, it was an auxiliary drug for torture. Its effect was to increase the physical sensitivity of the tortured person and concentrate the opponent's attention. To put it simply, torture would multiply the torture of the tortured person, and at the same time he would not pass out. The torture effect of the Wang family of Beihai was even more powerful. They added some failed immortality potions into it. They did not consider the toxins in the failed products. Once this kind of torture was injected, the injected person's spirit would be more concentrated, his perception would be more sensitive, and his resilience would be greatly increased, which greatly prolonged the torture time. For any tortured person, this was the cruelest nightmare. "Does it feel good?" A low and cruel voice slowly sounded. "You will feel it for a long time." Kill me, Wang Shengxiao, kill me." His wounds were healing under the effect of the torture drug. The tearing pain and the indescribable itch took effect at the same time. His face suddenly twisted, and he roared at the top of his lungs. "Killing you is easy." Wang Shengxiao took half a step back. "Tell me, how many people do you have in Xingzhou who participated in the so-called new task? Who gave you the task? Tell me, and I'll give you a quick death. Dream on." He gritted his teeth, his voice sinister. Wang Shengxiao said expressionlessly, "Go on." The heart-wrenching screams became louder again. At the man's feet were several torture talents specially trained by the Wang family of Beihai. Their techniques were precise and comparable to the best surgeons. As long as they were given time, they could cut the man's body into pieces of minced meat bit by bit. This was exactly what Wang Shengxiao wanted. Cruel? Cold-blooded? Inhumane? Wang Shengxiao didn't bother to think about it. In his heart, the man in front of him was an enemy. Yes, an enemy. That was enough. Before this, Wang Xingxiao had never thought that he would regard this kind of person in front of him as a real enemy. The man's code name was Grey Rat, a senior agent of Zhongzhou State. He belonged to the 11th Bureau of the Ministry of Security and had the rank of Major General. He was the highest intelligence person in charge of Zhongzhou State lurking in Shenzhou. It could even be said that he was the highest intelligence person in charge of several cities in the north of Beihai Province. Combining the intelligence of both Beihai and Samsara Palace, Xianming and Lu Shuanghua eliminated countless obstacles created by people, and finally completely locked on Grey Rat's identity. Song Qiong personally took action and captured Grey Rat. Although he was captured, the outcome of the battle was not ideal. There was a mistake in the intelligence report, and the capture this time did not end up as expected. Their thunderous operation in the Shenzhou continent ended up capturing less than 10 people. To be exact, there were only 9. Each of the 9 people was indeed the top lurking talent of Zhongzhou State. But in the vast Shenzhou city, it was impossible for there to be only 10 people. Although it did not achieve the expected result, it was also an unexpected gain. Not everyone had a steel will that could face death with equanimity. Grey Rat, of course, Grey Rat was unyielding, but the other elites naturally could not hold on in the cruel and unimaginable torture. 6 of the 9 people chose to commit suicide as soon as they were caught. After one of them failed to commit suicide, Wang Shengxiao directly pried open his mouth with the cruelest means. He learned their identities, learned Grey Rat's position, and also learned about the termination plan. The termination plan was independent of the hibernation plan and the awakening plan. This plan had existed more than a year ago, but at that time it was called the control plan, and the content was to find Wang Yuetong. But a few months ago, the control plan suddenly became the termination plan. The content was no longer to find. It was to kill Wang Yuetong. As soon as everyone saw Wang Yuetong, they must kill Wang Yuetong at all costs, destroy her body, and then secretly return to their country. This was the termination plan. It was simple and clear. The time when the plan was changed was probably after Wang Shengxiao visited Li Tianlan in the desert prison. What this meant couldn't be clearer. Xianming. Wang Shengxiao looked at Grey Rat's struggle and scream and suddenly called out. Xianming took a step forward and bowed his head slightly. Do you think the news about Yuetong was speculated by them, or did someone leak the news? This question seemed unimportant. But it was very important. No one will leak this kind of news. Xianming said quietly. There are not many people who know the content of the negotiation between you and Li Tianlan. They can be trusted, and Emperor Dong's palace will not leak the news either. It's not good for them. Li Tianlan doesn't look like the person who would do such a thing. So this is speculation? Wang Shengxiao's smile grew colder. Wang Yuetong was very important in the negotiation between Wang Shengxiao and Li Tianlan. Wang Shengxiao's sister. Li Tianlan's woman. What was the relationship between Li Tianlan and Wang Shengxiao? This was a good entry point. The grievances between Li Tianlan and the Wang family of Beihai were extremely complicated. With Wang Yuetong as the entry point, they could at least talk about one thing, that was Wang Yuetong or her future. If Wang Yuetong became the patriarch, it would be the biggest benefit for Li Tianlan in this cooperation, and he would definitely take action. What if Wang Yuetong died? If Li Tianlan killed Wang Yuetong, and then cooperated with the Wang family of Beihai, the benefits were limited, and the risks were obviously greater than the benefits. Killing Wang Yuetong was tantamount to infinitely reducing the possibility of Li Tianlan and Wang Shengxiao joining hands. This was easy to speculate. There might be all kinds of people in the parliament, but there would be no fools. However, they could speculate, but they had no evidence. In the absence of evidence, they launched a so-called termination plan to take action against Wang Yuetong, the core member of the Wang family of Beihai. They would find Wang Yuetong at all costs and kill her. Just because of a speculation. Wang Shengxiao scratched his chin. His face, which looked gentle most of the time, was a little twisted and ferocious. They are crazy. Wang Shengxiao looked at Xianming and said with certainty. Xianming sighed and did not speak. He agreed with Wang Shengxiao. At the beginning, No one thought that this game would be so fierce. In the so-called game, there were compromises, concessions, gains and losses, and finally a new balance was reached, creating a situation acceptable to all parties. But now, some people in the parliament, or someone, had undoubtedly begun to ignore the rules and began to kill. When he started the plan, he did not even consider the consequences. For that person, it was good that Wang Yuetong died, but he obviously did not think of the consequences after the termination plan was exposed. Someone was indeed crazy. What on earth happened to make the other party's mentality unbalanced to such an extent? This is not a game. Wang Shengxiao whispered, "This is destruction." Xianming's face changed slightly. Wang Shengxiao glanced at Grey Rat, who was covered in blood. One of Grey Rat's calves had been broken, countless blood vessels and muscles were torn out, and small pieces of broken bones were thrown on the ground. Wang Shengxiao smiled and waved his hand. The door of the torture room was opened. A man of few words walked in with a huge wolfhound on his leash. Seeing the broken flesh and bones on the ground, the huge wolf dog was obviously a little anxious. Wang Shengxiao nodded. The man. Loosening his grip, the wolf dog rushed out and lay on the ground to gnaw on Grey Rat's flesh. Grey Rat, who had become a little dispirited, suddenly struggled again when he saw this scene. His cry was filled with endless fear. "Go on," Wang Shengxiao said. "Don't let him die. There's enough potion. If he can't hold on, you can use the enhanced version of the potion." He glanced at Grey Rat and said calmly, "In addition, inform Minister Fan Tianyin to investigate Grey Rat's identity. If he has family and friends, bring them all to Beihai." He reached out and touched the wolf dog, who was eating with its head down, with a feminine smile. How much meat can such a big dog eat? Xianming suddenly shivered. Wang Shengxiao. Grey Rat's extremely resentful roar suddenly rang out. F*CKU. Pa! Wang Shengxiao slapped Grey Rat directly in the face. "Don't talk about these useless things." Wang Shengxiao said calmly, "If you win, the people behind you will treat me the same way, my family, parents, and children. Now you're in my hands. It's fair for me to treat your family, children, and parents like this. Everything you enjoy now, your family will also enjoy. After I feed this dog, I will send it to the parliament and let them have a taste of a dog that has eaten human flesh. Isn't it delicious? Within 3 days, your family will come to accompany you." Wang Shengxiao turned around and walked out of the torture room. He said expressionlessly, "Don't kill him. At least don't let him die in front of his family." Grey Rat stared at Wang Shengxiao's back. There was a flash of hesitation in his eyes, and then he became more and more painful. "Patriarch." Xianming followed Wang Shengxiao out of the torture room. He hesitated and asked, "Should we inform Emperor Dong's palace about the termination plan?" "What?" Wang Shengxiao said expressionlessly. "Do you think I can't protect my sister?" Xianming felt cold all over and shook his head subconsciously. He took a deep breath and said, "Of course I don't mean that. It's just that we are cooperating with Emperor Dong's palace now. If we hide this matter, it's meaningless. It will only cause estrangement between us and the other party. Moreover, the intelligence system of Samsara Palace is very powerful. The other party can launch the termination plan in Beihai. There may be similar plans outside Beihai." Wang Shengxiao was silent for a long time before he nodded and said yes. Xianming quietly breathed a sigh of relief and asked, "What should we do next?" "Next?" Wang Shengxiao smiled and said, "What do you think we should do?" Li Huaxing, Chen Fangqing, the academics, the Prince Group. Wang Shengxiao muttered to himself and suddenly said, "Who do you think is most likely to go crazy at the moment? Or perhaps they've all gone mad?" Xianming hesitated and said slowly, "Chen Fangqing." Wang Shengxiao hummed indifferently, as if he agreed, but also as if he was asking. The Prime Minister attaches great importance to the interests of Zhongzhou State, and his means are sometimes too harsh. In recent years, he has done a lot of things secretly in Africa and America. That's a means of external affairs, and no one said anything. Moreover, he will retire next year and has no time. At this time, his mentality is likely to have some problems. The style of the termination plan is very like his means. Xianming paused and continued. Compared with him, the president still has time. He is likely to be re-elected next time. And the means of the entire academics are relatively mild. So? Wang Shengxiao asked. So, Xianming hesitated and said. So I think there may be differences between the president and the prime minister. The president is likely to be unable to control the current situation. Patriarch, Grey Rat has been lurking in Beihai for more than 20 years. 20 years ago, the academics was not strong. The giants who decided to launch the hibernation plan at that time have now retired. As for the influence of those old people who have retired but still have great influence, the academics is very weak in this respect. Chen Fangqing is strong. That makes sense. Wang Shengxiao nodded and said, so he's crazy. Xianming did not speak. Wang Shengxiao's smile became more and more unbridled. Xianming, do you know what kind of person is the most suitable to deal with this kind of lunatic? Xianming's expression was tense, and he shook his head. Ordinary people can't deal with a lunatic, especially a lunatic in a high position. Wang Shengxiao murmured. Only a lunatic crazier than him, can deal with this kind of lunatic. Go and pass the order. I'm going to tell that lunatic a truth that he can easily understand. From now on, those who are good at the border of Beihai die. Chapter 830. Kanglan City, Chongqing Street. From the height of the 16th floor, Enchantress looked at a snack bar on the edge of the street through binoculars. Her expression was calm, indifferent, and full of patience, like a hunter waiting for her prey to take the bait. Are you sure it's today? Enchantress chewed the gum in her mouth and asked casually. It's today. A middle-aged man adjusted his glasses and said in a calm voice. The confirmed time is 3:30 at night. He was the main person in charge of the intelligence of Kanglan City in Beihai Province. His name was Jiang Xiu, one of the top executives of the Jiang family of Kanglan City. In the Jiang family, he was also in charge of intelligence work, and was the second person in charge of the intelligence of the Jiang family. But most of the time, he worked for Mount Dibing and coordinated the intelligence between Mount Dibing and the Jiang family to make the intelligence work of Beihai more detailed. The whole Beihai was generally like this. Mount Dibing would not send direct descendants to personally control the intelligence system of each city. Generally, talents were selected and appointed from within the major sword-holding families. Those who were selected would not only become the person in charge of the intelligence of a city, but also the second person in charge of the internal intelligence system of the sword-holding family. For example, Huangfu Renjie of the Huangfu family in Qiushui. Jiang Xiu of the Jiang family of Kanglan City was the same. Enchantress looked at her watch. It was already 2:50 at night. Can't you all sit still? She sneered in a low voice. The old ancestor died more than a year ago, and Dijiang was expelled. In the eyes of others, the Jiang family is inevitably like a toothless tiger, so they invested a lot of power in Kanglan City. Until now, they have only coordinated. They are more patient. Enchantress was expressionless, but the killing intent on her body was getting sharper. The snack bar in the binoculars was their harvest 3 days ago. The Jiang family secretly controlled an elite of Jifeng sword training school, and forced the location of the snack bar from him. However, the elite of Jifeng sword training school did not know who was behind the snack bar. They were not even sure if it was the location of Jifeng sword training school. But for the Wang family of Beihai, as long as they had the location, it was not difficult to trace it. After a deep investigation, the Wang family of Beihai confirmed that the owner of the snack bar had belonged to a special force of Zhongzhou State many years ago, and came to Beihai after retirement. Wang Shengxiao personally communicated with Fan Tianin. The Ministry of State Security of Zhongzhou State took a secret action, and used the snack bar as a clue. Most of a detailed intelligence network had appeared in the sight of the Wang family of Beihai. This could be said to be the biggest reward of their search so far, because this snack bar was the core gathering point established by Zhongzhou State in Kanglan City. Jiang Xiu had squeezed out all the value of that elite of the Jifeng sword training school. According to the information he had provided, They had received a secret order 3 days ago to gather at this snack bar today and coordinate with the major forces to come up with the final plan of action. Coordinate with the major forces. This sentence was enough to show that there was more than one force gathered in the snack bar today. What did it mean for more than one force to gather in the hiding place of Zhongzhou State? Jiang Xiu's phone kept ringing. He lowered his head and browsed through the news from everywhere on his mobile phone. He narrowed his eyes and said softly, "If I'm not mistaken, if our action goes well today, we can probably catch all the lurkers of all the superpowers, including Zhongzhou State. At least we can eliminate more than 80% of their strength." What's the reason? The enchantress raised her eyebrows. Because of the current situation of the Jiang family and the geographical location of Kanglan City. Jiang Xiu's voice was still slow, but his eyes flashed with a heart-palpitating coldness. The Jiang family is in a very bad situation right now. In the past year or so, we have lost 2 invincible realm experts. The old ancestor DK died in the hands of Li Tianlan, and Di Jiang was also expelled and imprisoned. The strength of the Jiang family has been greatly damaged. When the old ancestor was alive, we were faintly the #1 family among the 7 sword-holding families. With Di Jiang, how glorious was the Jiang family in the past. Without these 2 people, the foundation of the Jiang family is still there. But in the eyes of outsiders, we are inevitably weak. It can even be said that we are the weakest of the 7 major sword-holding families. In addition, the position of Kanglan City in Beihai is very special. It is right in the middle of Beihai province. Across the Kanglan River is the northern part of Beihai. If I want to deal with the Wang family of Beihai, my first target must be the Jiang family in Kanglan City. First, the Jiang family is weak and not strong enough, so I can take advantage of it. Second, as long as Kanglan City is in chaos, it is easy to attract some of the attention of Mount Dibbing and pin them down here. Third, when Kanglan City is in chaos to the extreme, its leader can calmly decide to go north and attack Mount Dibbing. Even if it fails. Jiang Xiu smiled and suddenly said, "South of Kanglan City is Tongtian Port Chen clan." He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. But the enchantress understood what he meant. The Chen clan of Tongtian Port was the weakest among the 7 major sword-holding families. Li Tianlan even destroyed their headquarters with one sword stroke, and the elites and experts of the Chen clan were also heavily injured or killed. Even if the total attack on Mount Dibbing fails, the allied forces of several superpowers will go south with Kanglan City as the center. The Jiang family is weak, and the Chen clan is even more powerless to fight back. If we go south, Qiushui and Huangfu might not be clean, right? If we go south, it will be East Island. What a coincidence. In this war, East Island is still the main force. What does this mean? Jiang Xiu patted the enchantress on the shoulder. The enchantress stepped aside. Jiang Xiu looked at the snack bar in the middle of the night through the telescope, narrowed his eyes and said softly, "This means that as long as they take down Kanglan City, they will have the absolute initiative. If they go further, they can destroy Mount Dibbing. Even if they can't do it, they can take away half of Beihai with Kanglan City as the center. In Kanglan City, Jiangqian and Mount Dibbing really rule by dividing the river. As long as they succeed here, they can be invincible. Don't forget that the land of 80,000 square kilometers south of Kanglan River belonged to East Island hundreds of years ago. They have never given up. This time they have such a good opportunity, they will do whatever it takes." The enchantress was silent for a long time, and then said softly, "So you mean that tonight's gathering in the snack bar may be a precursor to their general attack? All the superpowers have coordinated. If they don't take action, are they waiting for the new year?" Jiang Xiu laughed. "Let's take action here first. In the first battle, they must go all out. I'm sure that there are more experts lurking in Kanglan City than we think. Maybe they want more than just chaos." Jiang Xiu's eyes were a little ferocious. "They want to completely destroy our Jiang family. They can't do it." The enchantress's eyes suddenly bloomed with an extremely sharp killing intent. "We came at the right time. In that case, let's catch them all directly. Beep." The slightly harsh sound rang for a moment. This was the special ringtone set by Jiang Xiu. His face changed. He looked down at the phone, and his face suddenly became dignified. What's wrong? The enchantress asked slowly. It's a new order from the patriarch. Jiang Xiu looked down at the phone. His tone was very slow, and every word carried extreme pressure and killing intent. Anyone who enters the border of Beihai will die. No matter who it is, no one will be left alive. The enchantress's expression also changed slightly. Anyone who enters the border of Beihai will die. No matter who it is, no one will be left alive? According to the information they had, the lurker in the snack bar was a real major general of Zhongzhou state. Wang Shengxiao must have known this. But he still gave the order. No matter who it was. A blood-red color flashed in the enchantress's eyes, and her eyes gradually became determined. She didn't know what happened in Mount Dibbing tonight. But from Wang Shengxiao's order, there was no doubt that the game had escalated. Now it was a real war. Get ready. Kill them all. The enchantress said slowly. I don't think we can defeat them. The muscles on Jiang Xiu's face twitched. After all, the enchantress was one of them, so he didn't feel humiliated, just helpless and angry. The Jiang family of Kanglan was loyal, brave and fearless. Among the 7 sword-holding families, the Jiang family was always the bravest one, always full of fighting spirit. But now, facing the enemy at his doorstep, he, a core member of the Jiang family, said he couldn't defeat them. This feeling, if the old ancestor was still here, if Di Jiang was still here, Jiang Xiu clenched his teeth and finally smiled bitterly. Even if we transfer people from the family headquarters, it's still too late. Who knows, we might even alert the enemy. If the experts of the major forces hiding in Kanglan really gather here, there might be variables. The enchantress gave him a strange look. Do you think I'm here just to monitor them? Jiang Xiu was stunned. What am I doing here if I'm not fully prepared? The enchantress asked again. Jiang Xiu seriously thought about the people brought by the enchantress. The enchantress was now a half-step to the invincible realm, and she brought 2 masters at the peak of the thundershocking realm. Jiang Xiu was also a master of the thundershocking realm. There were 2 people in the Jiang family who were in the same realm as him. This force was really not weak. However, if he wanted to capture all of them in one fell swoop, it seemed to be somewhat insufficient. It's hard. Jiang Xiu shook his head. It's not hard. The enchantress said blandly. Just watch. A group of figures appeared in the telescope. A team of about a dozen people walked together. Everyone was chatting loudly. They were dressed in plain clothes stained with dust, like a group of workers who just got off work late at night. They looked natural, laughing, and walked into the snack bar. 2 middle-aged couples, who seemed to be traveling here, walked in behind the group of workers with their suitcases. The night was quiet. The noisy voices of the workers spread far away in the night. The enchantress raised the corner of her mouth, a little sarcastic. Through the telescope he saw it clearly. When one of the workers put his arm around his workmate's shoulder, a bright light flashed on his wrist. That watch, if the enchantress was right, was called Vacheron Constantine. It was 100% authentic. If this was really a group of workers, then they couldn't afford that watch with a year's salary. The target appeared. The enchantress didn't know who they were, which forces they came from, and what task they had. She picked up the walkie-talkie with some regret and said calmly, "Search for suspicious people within a radius of 3 kilometers from the snack bar." The sound of machine operation came from the walkie-talkie. The staff on the other end was scanning the whole process with the help of military satellites. "Sir, no suspicious targets found." The enchantress nodded and continued, "Expand the range 5 kilometers." "Sir, no suspicious targets found." The enchantress looked at her watch. There were still 3 minutes before they met. This kind of joint action meeting of all forces was not going to happen. Someone would be late. So, was everyone here? The enchantress switched the channel of the walkie-talkie and whispered, "It's time to send them on their way." Now, Jiang Xiu asked directly. He had no confidence in his heart. But as a member of the Jiang family, for Mount Dibbing, and for Beihai, he would not flinch, even if he was smashed to pieces. "We don't need you." The enchantress shook her head and said, "Just watch." "You want to do it yourself?" Jiang Xiu thought the enchantress was crazy. "We don't need me." The enchantress said flatly. If it's a normal arrest, we all have to do it. That's why we prepared a lot of people. But the patriarch has a new order to kill all of them here. In this way, things are easier. Shengzhou has Firmament, Jiushui has Xiaohuang, and Mount Dibing also knows the importance of Kanglin. My strength is not as good as Firmament and Xiaohuang. How can I come here alone? Jiang Xiu's eyes lit up slightly. There are experts from Mount Dibing secretly accompanying you? Who is it? The enchantress chuckled and said, Do you know Firmament? Firmament? Jiang Xiu was stunned. He is still in Shengzhou. I mean, do you know Firmament's identity in the Wang family of Beihai? Not his current identity, but his previous identity. Firmament's previous identity in the Wang family of Beihai. Jiang Xiu was in a trance. Firmament was now the vice commander of the Beihai Corps. In the case that the patriarch was only a name in the Beihai Corps, he could be said to be the highest officer of the hundreds of thousands of troops in the Beihai Corps. He had a high position, and was only under one person. Wang Shengxiao could be said to have absolute trust in him. What about before Firmament became the vice commander of the Beihai Corps? Why did Wang Shengxiao trust him so much? It was because of Firmament's identity. There were many experts in the Wang family of Beihai. Almost every expert of the Thundershocking realm had their own duties. They were either appointed internally or sent out. The enchantress had been sent out to the Sky Academy in Huating. Firmament could be said to be the top expert in the entire Mount Dibing. He was the top expert of the half-step invincible realm. But he was also a special person. Before Xiaohuang appeared, Firmament could vaguely be regarded as the first person under the invincible realm in Mount Dibing. But he did not hold any official position in Mount Dibing, nor was he sent out. Although he occasionally dealt with some things for Mount Dibing, most of the time he stayed with Wang Shengxiao. He was like an idler, or in other words, a bodyguard. The Dark World was very familiar with the style of the Wang family of Beihai, so no one dared to look down on Firmament. For people like Firmament, the Dark World called them protectors. They were the protectors of the future patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. They were the most trusted bodyguards of the patriarch and the future patriarch. They were the top expert of the half-step invincible realm. When the Wang family of Beihai was at its peak, there were even protectors of the invincible realm. Firmament was Wang Shengxiao's protector. You mean protector? Jiang Xiu took a deep breath and asked softly. Yes, protector. The enchantress smiled. Firmament is Wang Shengxiao's protector. Everyone knows this. Old Master Heaven Saber DK was the protector of the old patriarch. Your Jiang family must know this. She lowered her head and adjusted the channel of the walkie-talkie. She said lightly, But so many years have passed. Do you still know who the protector of His Majesty Sword Emperor was? The walkie-talkie was adjusted to the last channel. The enchantress's expression was solemn and solemn. She said calmly, Senior, please take action. Don't be merciful. Jiang Xiu's expression changed dramatically. She suddenly turned around and looked out of the window. In an instant, the dead night outside the window was suddenly illuminated by endless light. The light surged wantonly in the night, surging endlessly. Tens of thousands of blue electric arcs shrouded the deep sky, illuminating everything in the city. The world seemed to become quiet for a moment. The vast lightning filled the world. In an instant, the boundless lightning condensed into a beam of light that penetrated the night sky. It was like a divine punishment above the ninth heaven. The extremely dazzling lightning suddenly expanded and smashed directly into the center of the snack bar. There was a loud bang. The entire street was shaking violently, and the originally brightly lit snack bar was completely pulverized in an instant. Countless lightning bolts spread out with incredible aftershocks, destroying the street lamps and lifting up the streets. Dense cracks appeared on the huge buildings nearby, and they were on the verge of collapse. Everything happened in just 3 to 5 seconds. Jiang Xiu looked at the ruins of the snack bar. It was quiet and dead silent. Major General of Zhongzhou State? Jifeng Sword Reigning School? The Vatican? Wuji Palace? The Jiang family of South America? Were they going to kill the experts of the Jiang family? Maybe. They might have existed. But now everything was gone. Even the corpses had turned into powder and drifted with the dust of the ruins. The lightning that was constantly spreading quickly disappeared. The street was quiet again. Jiang Xiu opened his eyes wide and was dumbfounded. He finally remembered who the protector of His Majesty Sword Emperor was. The old patriarch of the Wu family in Shenzhou. Wu Di. Codename Punishment. Chapter 831. When he was woken up by the urgent ringing of the phone, he felt dizzy. The scenes in his dream and reality were mixed together, and he was in a daze. Chen Fangqing opened his eyes and let the phone ring. He couldn't come back to his senses for a while. He had been in a high position for many years and worked hard. He was as steady as a mountain at the top of the world. He had experienced all of these. As he grew older, he felt more powerless. The healthcare doctor had clearly explained his physical condition. His blood sugar was very low. Recently, he even had some symptoms of mental weakness. Chen Fangqing also wanted to pay attention to it, but when he was busy, how could he pay attention to it? The phone kept ringing. After the call was automatically hung up because no one answered, the other party immediately called again. Chen Fangqing shook his head fiercely, and finally woke up from the confusion. He looked at his watch. It was 4:15 at night. It was less than 2 hours since he fell asleep. Chen Fangqing sat up shakily to find his phone. The person who could call his private phone at this time was definitely not an ordinary person. What they said was also not ordinary, so he couldn't be angry. The phone rang for a while. Then it rang again. Chen Fangqing frowned and suddenly felt a little uneasy. He took out his phone from his bag and looked at the phone number on the screen. His eyes changed and he instantly woke up. The phone was automatically hung up because no one answered. On the phone screen, there were already 9 calls from Li Huaqing. What happened? Chen Fangqing glanced outside. It was quiet outside the window. If something big happened, his secretary should wake him up as soon as possible. The phone rang again. Chen Fangqing frowned tightly, took a deep breath and calmly answered the phone. President, it's me. Prime Minister, I'm on the way to Dragon Lake Park. Come here immediately. Let's meet at Qi's house. Li Huaqing's voice sounded directly on the phone, indifferent, calm, tough, and irresistible. In Chen Fangqing's impression, this seemed to be the first time that Li Huaqing spoke to him in such a tone. He nodded and just wanted to say something, but Li Huaqing had directly hung up the phone. Chen Fangqing's heart slightly sank. He vaguely guessed something. Dragon Lake Park. Old Qi. The location and the people were enough to provoke his sensitive nerves. Longhu Park was not a park, but a place where many incumbent and retired councillors and even retired directors of Zhongzhou State lived. The well-proportioned villas in the park represented a strong influence in Yuzhou, even the entire Zhongzhou State. As for Elder Qi and the Qi family, even though they had retired for many years, they were still considered the top family in Longhu Park. Elder Qi's full name was Qi Zhengdong. More than 20 years ago, he used to be the first deputy minister of the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State, the Minister of National Defense, and concurrently the Minister of Security. He was a leader who still had a strong influence in the Prince Group. It could even be said that he was one of the current flag figures of the Prince Group. The biggest thing the old man did a few years before his retirement was to secretly launch a big plan after the collapse of the Li family. Hibernation plan. The hibernation plan of the Wang family of Beihai. In the middle of the night, Li Huaqing asked him to go to the Qi family's house. There was no doubt that something had happened to North Sea again. Something happened again. There was no end to it. Chen Fangqing felt agitated. He really didn't understand the significance of the Wang family of Beihai to Zhongzhou State. Maybe it had made contributions before, but now it was all a mistake. It was a mess, and it was endless. It made trouble every 2 or 3 days. It was a tumor, a bully, and it didn't know what was good for it. Chen Fangqing gritted his teeth, put on his clothes and asked someone to prepare the car. He didn't bring his secretary, but just took the driver to Longhu Park. The interior of Longhu Park was brightly lit. The president visited Longhu at night without hiding his whereabouts. At this time, many people in the park had already been alarmed. Even some councillors who were not well informed did not know what had happened until now. When Chen Fangqing's car was about to enter the gate of Longhu Park, a black Hongqi slowly drove out from the gate. One in and one out. The two cars tacitly stopped at the gate. Chen Fangqing opened the window, squinted, and kept his composure. The window of the Hongqi rolled down. Yi Dongxing waved from the back of the car with a smile, but his eyes were unusually cold. Prime Minister, what brings you to Longhu Park so late at night? This was a question that he already knew the answer to. Others might not know about what happened in Beihai, but it was impossible for Yi Dongxing not to know. He even knew the news earlier than Li Huaqing. It was more likely that Yi Dongxing already knew a lot of things before it happened. Chen Fangqing's mouth twitched, and he said with a faint smile, "It should be related to Beihai. Why General Yi still doesn't know what happened." Beihai in North. See. Yi Dongxing repeated, smiled, and said faintly, "It's just a small matter in Beihai. I didn't expect the president and the prime minister to be alarmed. It seems that the two of you are very concerned about the matter in Beihai." General Yi thinks this is a small matter? Chen Fangqing stared at Yi Dongxing's eyes. To be honest, he still didn't know what happened. This was obviously a bit abnormal. Elder Qi was the leader of the Prince Group, and he could be said to be the leader of the chess game in Beihai. But now that something happened in Beihai, he informed Li Huaqing, and he didn't inform him until now. This seemed to mean that Elder Qi was very dissatisfied with him. How could what happened in Beihai be a small matter for Elder Qi to show such an attitude? And if it was a small matter, how could Yi Dongxing go out now? Looking at the direction of the driver's turn signal, that road was obviously going to the army headquarters. The people who should die are dead, and the world is at peace. There are no people who always want to kill innocent people. Such people deserve to die the most. Yi Dongxing looked into Chen Fangqing's eyes without backing down. There was a flash of real killing intent in his eyes. Yi Dongxing never thought that Chen Fangqing dared to attack Wang Yuetong. This was not in line with the rules, and it was no longer a game. This was almost irrational. What kind of game was this? Chen Fangqing's move completely put the Wang family of Beihai in the position of the enemy. Was Beihai province the enemy of Zhongzhou state? No one dared to say this. Li Huaqing dared not say it. No one dared to say it. Yi Dongxing doted on Wang Yuetong very much. He and Wang Tianzong could be said to be life and death friends. When Wang Yuetong and Wang Shengxiao were young, Beihai experienced a very delicate period. During those years, the brother and sister were lodged in Yi Dongxing's home. He did not dare to show too much love to Wang Shengxiao. After all, Yi Dongxing knew what kind of responsibility the little boy would bear in the future. But for Wang Yuetong, Yi Dongxing completely doted on her as his own daughter and was obedient to her. Otherwise, Wang Shengxiao would not have visited the Yi family in Yuzhou as soon as he learned that Wang Yuetong had left Beihai more than a year ago. Because in Wang Yuetong's heart, the Yi family could be said to be her second home. Now, in Yi Dongxing's mind, Chen Fangqing's so-called termination plan almost meant that Chen Fangqing wanted to kill his daughter. No matter how gentle and generous he was, he could not turn a blind eye to it. What do you mean, General Yi? Chen Fangqing subconsciously avoided Yi Dongxing's eyes and said in a low voice, "You don't understand?" Yi Dongxing laughed. His smile was a little weird. In the dark night, his face, which was illuminated by the light, looked extremely domineering and ferocious. "If you don't understand, think about it yourself." As he spoke, he raised the window. When the window was about to close, Chen Fangqing vaguely heard Yi Dongxing murmur to himself, "I gave you face, but you don't want it." Chen Fangqing's facial muscles suddenly twitched for a moment, and his face turned livid. Yi Dongxing did not show any courtesy. The window was closed, and the red flag directly flew away. Chen Fangqing was silent for a long time before he slowly said, "Let's go." In the eyes of countless people, the Prime Minister's car slowly stopped in front of building number 11 in Longhu Park. Li Huaqing's car was already parked at the door. The housekeeper of building number 11 immediately welcomed Chen Fangqing in. "Prime Minister, the President and Senior Qi are in the study," the housekeeper whispered. Chen Fangqing smiled and said thank you. Without leading the way, he walked to the study with familiarity. The door of the study was unlocked, and it was quiet inside. Chen Fangqing hesitated and pushed open the door of the study. A thick cloud of pungent smoke drifted over. Chen Fangqing's mind was blank for a moment. He slowed down his breathing and walked into the study. The light in the study was on. Li Huaqing and an old man who was old but still burly were sitting on the sofa, smoking silently. President, Senior Qi. Chen Fangqing sat down on the sofa, and there was a look of inquiry in his eyes. What's going on? Then I should ask you. Li Huaqing suppressed his anger, and his calm tone was more like a low roar. Prime Minister, what have you been doing in North Sea recently? What do you mean? Chen Fangqing raised his eyebrows. I've said it before, I've told you again and again. Let nature take its course in North Sea. We've done what we should do, and there's no need to do anything else. Wang Qinglei has arrived in Italos, and his action is considered smooth. That's good, and there's no need to do anything else. But what about you? Prime Minister, tell me, what is the termination plan? Li Huaqing suddenly stood up and paced left and right in the study. His tone was a little exasperated. Chen Fangqing's hand holding the teacup suddenly trembled, and he narrowed his eyes. The termination plan was exposed? Why was it exposed? Our people. He put down the teacup. Were our people exposed in North Sea? Exposed? I was about to be uprooted. Overnight, we lost 4 major generals. For senior colonels, and lieutenant colonels lost nearly 30 people. Because of your termination plan, they are all dead, all killed. We lost 1/3 of our pawns in Zhongzhou state at once, and the major forces also suffered heavy losses. Wang Xingxiao has issued an order that anyone who enters the border of North Sea without permission will die, whether they are agents of Zhongzhou state or others. The Wang family of Beihai is killing people. Bastard! Chen Fangqing's body suddenly shook, and he flew into a rage. He slapped the tea table hard, and his anger soared to the sky. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He rebelled. North Sea is the territory of Zhongzhou state. For Zhongzhou state, there is no border. Who gave him the guts to kill 4 major generals just like that? Lawless, what does he want to do? What does Mount Dibbing want to do? Does he really think that Zhongzhou state doesn't dare to destroy them? Destroy them? How? Li Huaqing glanced at him coldly. Tell me, why do we want to destroy Mount Dibbing? Tell me, why do we want to kill Wang Yuetong? Chen Fangqing's momentum suddenly stagnated, and he couldn't speak for a while. He finally understood why Elder Qi was dissatisfied with him. For major generals, dozens of colonels, countless pawns, and men of sacrifice, they were all killed in one night. Zhongzhou state's painstaking efforts for more than 20 years suddenly suffered an unprecedented heavy loss. And this was exactly what happened after he visited Elder Qi not long ago, and got the highest command authority. He thought that the termination plan was right. But he didn't expect that the termination plan would be exposed so quickly. He didn't expect that Wang Shengxiao would really dare to kill people. For major generals, the other party was undoubtedly declaring war. Chen Fangqing's eyes were red. At this moment, there was only one thought left in his mind. The Wang family of Beihai deserved to die. Mount Dibbing deserved to die. I led them for more than 20 years. I was the one who proposed the hibernation plan. I asked them to lurk in Beihai, wait for the cold winter to pass, wait for spring to bloom, wait for them to wake up. Elder Qi's deep voice was unhurried as he thought. They do wake up now, but after they wake up, how can it be spring? It's simply sure hell. The termination plan. This plan is too much. Chen Fangqing's face suddenly twitched. His heart was bleeding, but he gritted his teeth. The termination plan is necessary. Life and death politics has always been the most dangerous and the craziest. Things haven't come to that point, so why do we have to go to extremes? You kill Wang Yuetong today, and you dare to kill Wang Xingxiao tomorrow. Mount Dibbing is gone, and Beihai province is fragmented. What's the point for us? Since more than 20 years ago, the hibernation plan has been very clear. Mount Dibbing needs to be weakened, and Beihai can be turbulent, but Mount Dibbing can't disappear in a short time. What we want is an obedient Wang family of Beihai, not a complete annihilation of the Wang family of Beihai. Prime Minister, your means are too fierce, And the new patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai is too young. Major General? It's nothing to kill a Major General. If you continue like this, once he sees that you want to destroy the Wang family of Beihai, he will even dare to kill you. For people in a desperate situation, there is never a need to think about destroying indiscriminately. Elder Qi said with a wry smile. If it really comes to that, he can just press a button, and the entire Beihai and the northeast of Zhongzhou state will become ruins. In that case, even if the Wang family of Beihai is gone, we will still completely lose. There's no need to continue. Li Huaqing shook his head. The termination plan is aimed at Wang Yuetong. She is Wang Xingxiao's sister. Even if she left Mount Dibing, she is still a core member of Mount Dibing. The Prime Minister's approach has made Wang Xingxiao lose hope. He killed 4 major generals, not as a warning, but as a declaration of war. He took a deep breath, clenched his fists tightly, and suppressed his inner irritation. A real declaration of war, either you or I die. He doesn't want to go back. Prime Minister, are you satisfied with this result? Chen Fangqing's face was gloomy. This time, the reaction of the Wang family of Beihai was too fierce. The actual significance of this matter was even more significant than Wang Xingxiao's posture of not hesitating to fight. Because at that time, everything was just an attitude. Tonight, the 4 major generals and countless elites were talking about the action of the Wang family of Beihai. There was no turning back. Mount Dibing had no intention of turning back. They would not stop until one of them died. It's too late, Li Huaqing said quietly. It's too late to say anything now. Prime Minister, things have come to this point. What else do you want to say? Chen Fangqing, whose face was a little pale, moved the corners of his mouth and was about to speak. A cell phone beep suddenly rang. He silently took out his cell phone. The lock cell phone screen lit up, and there was a text message on it. Chen Fangqing's pupils suddenly contracted. He stared at the text message and remained silent. That was a text message from Wang Xingxiao. There were only 8 words. But in Chen Fangqing's eyes, they were like lightning, thunder, and bloody rain. There's no turning back. Bring it on. Chapter 832. Chen Fangqing looked at the phone in silence. His body was as stiff as a lifeless statue. There was no turning back. Bring it on. Between the lines, Chen Fangqing really saw the color of blood, and saw countless tragic endings. He held his breath, and his face turned blue for a moment. What's wrong? Li Huaqing noticed that something was wrong with his face, so he frowned and asked. He really didn't like Chen Fangqing now. In the past many years, although they had different positions, they were in harmony on the big issues and put the interests of Zhongzhou state first. Chen Fangqing's means might be a little fierce, but in the depths of his soul, there was indeed selflessness. Otherwise, he couldn't have developed the academics to such a scale in the face of a powerful prime minister supported by the whole prince group. Li Huaqing had always thought that Chen Fangqing was a terrible person, but also a trustworthy person. He could be said to be his best partner. But what happened tonight made Li Huaqing realize for the first time that Chen Fangqing was a bad teammate. To be honest, the termination plan was indeed fierce and against Li Huaqing's original intention, but he didn't think Li Huaqing was wrong. Wang Yuetong was now the key between Li Tianlan and Wang Xingxiao. If Wang Yuetong could be killed and the evidence destroyed, the possibility of cooperation between Emperor Dong's palace and the Wang family of Beihai would be greatly reduced. Even if Li Tianlan insisted on taking the independent road of the Wang family of Beihai, without Wang Yuetong as a buffer, even if they cooperated this time, there would be greater conflicts in the future, which would give Zhongzhou state an opportunity. Wang Yuetong's death was indeed good for the overall situation of Zhongzhou state. But the last thing Chen Fangqing should do was expose the termination plan, and let the Wang family of Beihai know about it. In some things, if he succeeded, he would be a hero, and if he failed, he would be a sinner. There was nothing to say. Chen Fangqing silently put the phone on the tea table and still didn't speak. The screen of the phone was on with a slightly dazzling light. Li Huaqing took the phone and glanced at it. His eyes narrowed. He deliberately took out his phone and glanced at it. His phone was quiet, and there was no message. And the text message Chun Fangqing received was right there. It was just a few words, but with a sense of danger. Li Huaqing could not see the slightest possibility of compromise or retreat from these short words. Li Huaqing felt cold all over. He subconsciously sat on the sofa and tightened his clothes. Wang Shengxiao. He really did not intend to turn back. They would fight to the death. What do you think? Li Huaqing glanced at Chun Fangqing and suddenly asked. Lighting up a cigarette. Chun Fangqing took a deep breath and calmly said, he won't turn back, but do I have a choice? This could have never happened, or rather, there should have been a gentler way to solve it, not. What about time? Chun Fangqing directly interrupted Li Huaqing's words. There is a gentler way, but it requires time. Do we have time? We didn't. I am not referring only to the question of our term of office, but also to the south. Emperor Dong's palace is growing, and they have now begun to cooperate. The Wang family of Beihai does not agree with us to attack Emperor Dong's palace, and Emperor Dong's palace does not agree with us to attack the Wang family of Beihai, because this is the foundation of their foothold. We can spend a lot of time to slowly weaken the Wang family of Beihai by so-called gentle means. What about Emperor Dong's palace? The speed of Emperor Dong's palace's development will definitely be faster than the speed of weakening the Wang family of Beihai. At that time, the Wang family of Beihai will still exist, and Emperor Dong's palace will become another behemoth. Time. We don't have time. Chun Fangqing's tone was a little agitated. What about now? Li Huaqing said coldly. The current situation is even worse. Have you thought about the consequences if we completely turn against each other? What you said may make sense, but it doesn't mean that what you are doing now is right. We have no choice. Chun Fangqing said blandly. Ha! Li Huaqing was so angry that he laughed. Is this the so-called shirking of responsibility? You can make wrong decisions when you have no choice? You can make excuses for everything when you have no choice? Your termination plan is to kill Wang Yuetong, Wang Shengxiao's sister, the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai. If the Wang family of Beihai can't even protect such a person, what's the need for it to exist? Now your plan has been exposed. Wang Yuetong has not been found, and Mount Dibing has gone crazy. They are killing people now. They are not enemies but our people. For major generals, and that's not all. One day they will kill all the people we left in Beihai, not only them but also their families, relatives and friends. Friend, no one will survive. This is not a fucking game. This is revenge. Revenge, do you understand? If it weren't for your termination plan, how could things have developed to this extent? You have no choice. Well, tell me now, what should we do if the Wang family of Beihai wants a life and death struggle? Tell me, what should we do? Is there a war? Planes, tanks, armies, nuclear bombs? Is that right? I'm not shirking my responsibility. Chun Fangqing stood up and looked out of the window. The deep night was about to pass, and a hazy light appeared on the horizon. He was silent for a long time before he calmly said, You asked me if there was a war. Yes. His expression was as hard as a rock. I want a war. This is a war between me and Wang Shengxiao. Do you know what you're talking about? Li Huaqing said in a low voice. I know very well. Wang Shengxiao also knows very well that this may be his last bit of reason. His war, his revenge, and his fight to the death are all aimed at me. Chun Fangqing narrowed his eyes. His declaration of war is also aimed at me. So, Li Huaqing asked expressionlessly. I don't shirk my responsibility, but since we have differences, there is no need to advance or retreat together in this matter. President, you use your gentle means, and I will choose to fight with the little guy from the Wang family of Beihai. He declared war on me. Can I run away? I have no choice but to accept the challenge. Li Huaqing suddenly raised his eyebrows. He wanted to say something, but in the end he remained silent. Chun Fangqing's words seemed to be in a fit of pique, but they were not unreasonable. Neither Zhongzhou State nor Beihai could afford the consequences of a war. Wang Shengxiao directly targeted Chun Fangqing for revenge. Chun Fangqing accepted the challenge. Whether he won or lost, for the overall situation of Zhongzhou State, This matter was still barely controllable. But what about Qin Fangqing himself? Have you thought about the consequences? Li Huaqing asked in a low voice. Qin Fangqing wanted to kill Wang Yuetong. If necessary, he would not be polite to Wang Shengxiao. If he won, the Wang family of Beihai would inevitably be destroyed, but the resources of Beihai province would still belong to Zhongzhou state. But what if he failed? Had he really thought about his end? Qin Fangqing was silent for a long time before he laughed at himself. It's not a matter of whether I think about the consequences or not. It's a matter of whether I have any other choice. If Wang Shengxiao wants to fight to the death, what can I do? Either he dies or I die. When the fight went beyond the scope of a game and evolved into a war, the end was so tragic. Qin Fangqing was sure that if he failed, he would be the most miserable prime minister since the founding of Zhongzhou state. Because his opponent this time was not an ordinary opponent, but a real behemoth that had been standing at the peak since the founding of the country. I still have about a year's time. This war must end within this time, Qin Fangqing said quietly. His tone was extremely firm and crazy. I should remind you, Li Huaqing said calmly. Maybe you have overlooked a very important point. Wang Yuetong is not only the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai, but also Li Tianlan's woman, the hostess of Emperor Dong's palace. Wang Shengxiao will not let you go. Li Tianlan's character will only be more intense than Wang Shengxiao's. Do you think he will let you go? This was also a very important question. Li Tianlan's character was even stronger than Wang Shengxiao's. If he knew that Qin Fangqing wanted to kill his woman, what would he do? Did he have a reason to renege on the promise he made to the council previously? Qin Fangqing wanted to face the Wang family of Beihai by himself, but in fact he would face the joint forces of Emperor Dong's palace and the Wang family of Beihai. So he can't know about this. Qin Fangqing said calmly. At least in a short time he can't know. What do you want? Li Huaqing asked. Block the desert prison and cut off all their communication with the outside world. Anyone who dares to approach the prison will be killed, Qin Fangqing said in a gloomy tone. Li Huaqing didn't speak for a long time. He looked at Qin Fangqing's side face. After a long time he said slowly, You're really crazy. I can do that, Qin Fangqing said. The desert prison was within the scope of Beijiang of Zhongzhou state. Although there was a country in Beijiang, it was still the territory of the Prince Group in general. The Prince Group's position in Beijiang was deeply rooted. In terms of military and politics, it could be regarded as Qin Fangqing's confidant. It was not a gentleman who wanted to block the desert prison. You can do it, but how long can you block it? Li Huaqing asked. It won't take too long. I will speed up my actions in Beihai. When the matter in Beihai is over, Li Tianlan is nothing to worry about. Qin Fangqing said slowly. It's time for Kunlun City to contribute to this matter. Li Huaqing narrowed his eyes, looked at Qin Fangqing, and then looked at Elder Qi. Elder Qi lowered his eyes and said nothing. He might have been dissatisfied with Qin Fangqing when he first received the news, but he would not openly fall out with him. At this time, even if he had something to say, he would not say it in front of Li Huaqing. Qin Fangqing's meaning was already very clear. In the face of the endless revenge of the Wang family of Beihai, Qin Fangqing alone had to bear all the responsibilities and play with the Wang family of Beihai to the end. Fight to the end. Li Huaqing said no more. He stood up, walked out of the study, and then left Dragon Lake Park. Qin Fangqing stood in front of the window, watching Li Huaqing's car getting farther and farther away. He stood quietly and said nothing. From this moment on, in the matter against the Wang family of Beihai, when things were irreversible, Li Huaqing stayed out of it, and Qin Fangqing became the main leader. The game had officially become a war. It was completely different from before. If he lost, he would bear all the responsibilities and all the bad consequences. If he won, no one could take any credit from him. Qin Fangqing slowly turned around, took out his mobile phone, and dialed Wang Qinglei's number. Chapter 833. The night sky was high in Italy in winter, and the air was cold. Wang Qinglei stood on the balcony of the top floor of the hotel, looking up at the night sky. Countless stars twinkled in the pure and deep sky, like pairs of eyes in the darkness. He stared at the starry sky. The starry sky seemed to be staring at him, just like the current dark world. The whole dark world was paying attention to his visit to Europe. He was also paying attention to the dark world silently. They were testing and observing each other. Car lights lit up downstairs of the hotel. A row of cars slowly drove out of the hotel and merged into the traffic of Chichio City. Standing in Wang Qinglei's position, whether he looked at the stars in the sky or the traffic on the ground, they were all so small and so dazzling. This should be the last test. Wang Qinglei squinted and looked at a bodyguard beside him. The bodyguard nodded silently. At the beginning of Wang Qinglei's visit, he was always by Wang Qinglei's side, wearing a black cloak that covered his whole body. No one knew his identity or his appearance, but Wang Qinglei gave him unimaginable trust and was almost inseparable from him all day long. When Wang Qinglei was facing the heads of the major families in France, when he was having dinner with the Queen in England, and when he was meeting with Grand Duke Paul in Rothschild, he was always by Wang Qinglei's side. Other than that, Wang Qinglei did not bring a second bodyguard with him on this visit. This was enough to show the powerful strength of this bodyguard. The superpowers in the dark world who had been observing Wang Qinglei even thought that this black-cloaked man had the strength no less than that of an invincible realm expert. It's really annoying. Wang Qinglei lit a cigarette, recalled the trip in the past few days, and shook his head helplessly. The Vatican, the Jiang family of South America, Jifeng Sword Reigning School, and Wuji Palace. Plus Wang Qinglei. This was equivalent to the cooperation between the four superpowers in Zhongzhou State, which involved the interests of Europe, America, East Island and Zhongzhou State. It was a big gamble to plot against Beihai. At present, the cooperation of several superpowers had begun, but all parties were still testing each other until the end. This could be said to be asking a tiger for its skin, but the huge benefits forced them to make the decision to cooperate. Wang Qinglei didn't dare to fully trust the four superpowers. The four superpowers didn't trust each other very much, and they didn't dare to fully trust Wang Qinglei. Cooperation, coordination, negotiation, discussion. The suspicions were slowly dispelled, and everyone worked together with sincerity to achieve the desired results. Over the past few days, Wang Qinglei had met many people. Most of them were the spokespersons and representatives of the four major organizations. The meeting was like a game. He showed his sincerity bit by bit, and was accepted by the other party. He went all the way to Italos in Seven Hill City. The next stop was the European Sanctuary in Chichio City. He would meet the real giants of the four forces there, and formally discuss how to launch a war against Mount Dibbing. There's no need to be dissatisfied. The more cautious they are, the more we look forward to it. This means that they really value this cooperation. The black-cloaked bodyguard said lightly. He took a step forward and stood side by side with Wang Qinglei on the balcony. He pulled down the cloak on his head. A handsome and peaceful young man's face appeared under the night sky. It was Wang Xiaoyao's face. It's not that I'm dissatisfied. It's just that I can't wait any longer. We don't have much time left. Before this, we were the ones testing them. Now it's them testing us. A lot of time has been wasted in testing each other. Wang Qinglei shook his head. The opportunity is fleeting. We're anxious and so are they. Wang Xiaoyao said lightly, for each other, we all have interests that we can't let go of. Wang Qinglei nodded. What Wang Xiaoyao said made sense. Only a few people knew that this was the so-called joint action of the four major organizations. On the surface, it seemed that the Vatican was leading. But in fact, all this had little to do with the Vatican. To be exact, the four major organizations were Knights Templars, the Jiang family of South America, and the two martial arts forces in East Island. And Knights Templars was no longer the Knights Templars of the Vatican. It was His Majesty's Knights Templars. Once North Sea changed, His Majesty wanted everything that North Sea had in Europe, including Rothschild. With his strength, after absorbing everything, he would be able to become a behemoth that could compete with the Vatican in Europe and truly stand at the top of the world. And what the Jiang family of South America needed was His Majesty's ally to help them sweep away all the obstacles in America, such as the Heroes Club, the Men in Black, the fantasy world, and even Lin Fengting, the top expert in the dark world. If they helped His Majesty fight against Beihai, His Majesty would naturally give them enough rewards in America in the future. Jifeng Sword Training School and Wuji Palace wanted half of Beihai, or the whole Kunlun city. Half of Beihai belonged to East Island hundreds of years ago. If they could take it back, in their view, it would be the unification of East Island's territory. Even if they couldn't take half of Beihai, taking Kunlun City and controlling the dark power of Zhongzhou State was also a great temptation for them. In the final battle of Heaven Capital more than 3 years ago, Zhongzhou State used all its power to plot against East Island, which finally benefited the purgatory of Heaven Capital. Now East Island also wanted to plot against Zhongzhou State with all its power. And Wang Qinglei and Wang Xiaoyao wanted Mount Dibing. They were all big interests. Interests that were so big that no one could give up. So no one would leave this war. It was bound to be a life-and-death battle. After paying so much, of course, they had to be cautious. The one who just left has a high position in Knights Templars. He should be reporting to His Majesty now. If there is no accident, there should be a result tonight. Wang Qinglei said. Wang Xiaoyao narrowed his eyes and said thoughtfully, "What is the so-called His Majesty?" Wang Qinglei's eyes flickered. He was obviously very curious about the identity of His Majesty, but he had no clue. "I don't know. I've asked someone to check, but I can't find anything. This man is scheming and shrewd, and he has a big plan. When his identity is exposed, no one can stop him." Wang Xiaoyao sneered. Before he could speak, an incomparably soft light suddenly filled the night sky. A large area of Qiqiu City was completely illuminated in an instant. The light kept spreading, almost covering the whole Qiqiu City. Wang Qinglei turned his head and looked at the direction of the light with a playful expression. "Is that the Holy Land?" Wang Xiaoyao looked at the light and asked. "Yes." Wang Qinglei said. "It's also a welcome ceremony. The holy light comes, and the trial begins. This group of charlatans pay attention to everything they do. Oh, let's go." Wang Xiaoyao turned and walked out of the balcony. Wang Qinglei took out his mobile phone to prepare the car. Tonight would be the last night of his visit to Europe. The final place was number 2 Angel Street in the Holy Land. A place that was not marked in Qiqiu City. There was a place that made the heretics all over the world pale. The Vatican's tribunal. The Knights Templars initiated the trial of Beihai Province in the name of the Vatican. And the final place of the negotiation was the famous Holy Court Conference Room in the Vatican's tribunal. This conference, at first, was called the Trial Conference. The soft and pure light dispersed the night and spread like water. In the dim and strong light, Wang Qinglei's car slowly drove into the Holy Land and finally stopped in front of the tribunal. The light here became brighter and brighter. Even if there were onlookers, no one could see who came here. Surrounded by the light, Wang Qinglei and Wang Xiaoyao walked into the tribunal and into the room. They walked into the Holy Court Conference Room filled with darkness and scarlet tones. The conference room was very big, but there were very few people inside. Tianhai Wuji, the palace master of Wuji Palace, casually sat on the side with the left and right visiting professors of Wuji Palace. Opposite him was Yagyu Kurasumi, the master of Jifeng Sword Training School, and the 2 deputy masters of Jifeng Sword Training School. Above the 2 of them, Moraid, the current Grand Knight of Knights Templars, sat with a smile. When he saw Wang Qinglei come in, he stood up and made a gesture for him to sit down. Wang Xiaoyao, who had put on the black cloak again, looked up and quietly observed the murals in the conference room. The murals were vivid. In front of him, an angel with broken wings pierced the heart of the devil with a holy sword. The murals were surrounded by a dark red color, like blood. Wang Xiaoyao looked at the scene in front of him, and was a little fascinated. Wang Qinglei calmly sat at the conference table and said in a deep voice, "Where is His Majesty?" "His Majesty has a little disagreement with the Jiang family of South America. He is solving this matter and will come soon." Moraid smiled apologetically. "He asked me to apologize to you on his behalf." The 2 invincible realm grandmasters of East Island and Wang Qinglei frowned at the same time. At this time, His Majesty had a disagreement with the Jiang family of South America? What kind of disagreement? The newly advanced Invincible Realm expert, Jiang Guochu, seemed to have been very respectful of His Majesty. What on earth happened to make them disagree? Don't worry, it's just a little misunderstanding with the Jiang family of South America. It can be easily explained. I can guarantee that this little thing will not change our plan. Even if there is a change, it's good, Moraid said with a smile. Wang Qinglei nodded and said calmly, "Anyway, I hope it's done as soon as possible." Of course. Before Moraid could speak, a voice rang out from outside the conference room. There was a hint of laughter in the voice, and there seemed to be endless confidence in it. All of us hope for it to happen as soon as possible. In fact, now that things have developed to this point, there is no longer anything that can stop us. We are sitting here today to discuss our sincerity and determination, and nothing else, isn't that right? Everyone turned their heads at the same time. In their sight, the door of the conference room was still full of light. A figure came in the rich and soft light. Behind him, there was a tall and straight figure. Out of respect, everyone stood up and nodded to His Majesty, who was the last to enter. "Everyone, please." His Majesty's voice was full of laughter. He did not hide his true face, but a hazy halo covered his whole body, like clouds and starlight. Even the several Invincible Realm experts who were sitting could not see through His Majesty's face. He waved his hand and motioned for everyone to sit down. When he passed by Wang Xiaoyao, he paused, looked at him seriously and said with a smile, "I'm impolite. Your Highness, please sit down." "How did you know it was me?" Wang Xiaoyao slowly turned around and took off his cloak. His Majesty looked at Wang Xiaoyao, smiled and said nothing. His Majesty looked at Wang Xiaoyao, smiled and said nothing. The tall figure who came in behind him moved a chair and put it beside Wang Xiaoyao. Everyone's pupils contracted for a moment. What does this mean? Wang Xiaoyao narrowed his eyes and did not look at the chair. He looked at the man who moved the chair. The patriarch of the Jiang family of South America. The new Invincible Realm expert in the Dark World, Jiang Guochu. That's what I mean. His Majesty smiled faintly, found a place to sit down and said calmly, "Make a formal announcement to everyone." Chapter 834. There was silence in the conference room. One could even say that it was dead silent. Everyone was looking at the mysterious His Majesty. They were looking at Jiang Guochu next to His Majesty. Everyone's heart was full of absurd emotions. Jiang Guochu, the fourth follower. Everyone had a feeling that the wind was too strong for them to hear clearly. His Majesty now only had 4 followers. The first follower, Moraid, used to be the second commander of the Holy Disarmament Corps, and now the Grand Knight of Knights Templars. The second follower was famous in Zhongzhou State. White Tiger, one of the 4 spirit generals, died in the chaos of Eastern Europe. The third follower was Yagyu Kurasumi, the leader of Jifeng Sword Raining School. The Purgatory of Heaven Capital was now guarding Heaven Capital. Compared with 3 years ago when the Purgatory of Heaven Capital first appeared, its strength was not as good as before. Yagyu Kurasumi had truly stabilized his position as a great grandmaster in East Island. And now, His Majesty's 4th follower, the patriarch of the Jiang family of South America, Jiang Guochu. Europe, East Island, America. 3 regions, 3 followers. At this moment, even though everyone present was His Majesty's collaborator, everyone still felt palpitations in their hearts. Although in general, there was not a strong relationship between His Majesty and his followers, and they were cooperating with each other, many relationships never paid attention to nominal subordination. The most important thing was whether the relationship between the 2 parties was solid. His Majesty would not restrain his followers too much. For example, Yagyu Kurasumi was the 3rd follower, but Jifeng Sword Raining School was still an absolutely autonomous force. Perhaps the only exception was Moraid, but His Majesty had never asked him to do anything. Moraid was willing to be a loyal dog at His Majesty's feet, and it was entirely his voluntary behavior. But as a follower, he also had responsibilities to bear. His Highnesses could also influence their forces through followers and use their strength. This was like cooperation, but also like a transaction very equal. It sounded simple, but in fact, it was not easy at all. When a superior faced his subordinates, he considered ruling and ensuring their loyalty and position. When His Majesty faced his followers, he considered how to maintain their long-term and stable relationship. If this was a transaction, then the most important thing was whether what the two sides gave each other was equal. This was also the core secret between His Majesty and his followers. No one knew what His Majesty would give him after he became His Majesty's disciple. Nor did anyone know that His Majesty had given Mordesh. What was that? But as long as the disciples believed that what His Majesty had given them was worth the price, such transactions and cooperation would never go wrong. And this kind of relationship would also be more easily accepted by various countries. The royal family of East Island had never expressed any opinion on the master of Jifeng's sword training school becoming His Majesty's follower. Now Jiang Guochu had also become His Majesty's disciple. What His Majesty gave Jiang Guochu was no longer important. Since he was willing to be a follower, it proved that he could not refuse what His Majesty was giving him. Being unable to refuse also meant that this kind of cooperation was unbreakable, at least in the short term. It was no longer a matter of His Majesty having one more follower. With the addition of Jiang Guochu, His Majesty, Knights Templars, and Jifeng Sword Training School had one more reliable ally. And the Jiang family of South America also had the help of His Majesty, Knights Templars, and Jifeng Sword Training School. His Majesty had another ally by his side. This was a good thing for everyone in the alliance. Tianhai Wuji lowered his head and took a sip of tea, his eyes twinkling. He was not His Majesty's follower. Now seeing this scene, he had begun to subconsciously consider the next situation of Wuji Palace. Wang Qinglei looked at His Majesty, then at Jiang Guochu, and finally kept silent. He was a counselor of Zhongzhou State, and he would even strive for the presidency of Zhongzhou State in the future. It was impossible for him to become His Majesty's follower. Wang Xiaoyao also had his own pride, and it was also impossible for him to appear as a follower. Now seeing Jiang Guochu actually standing behind His Majesty, the two of them had mixed feelings. They looked at each other and didn't speak. The feeling of helplessly watching a strong competitor rise was not a good one. But fortunately, for now, Jiang Guochu becoming the fourth follower was more beneficial to the war of the Wang family of Beihai. What did he give you? Wang Xiaoyao glanced at Jiang Guochu and suddenly asked. Jiang Guochu sat next to His Majesty. Hearing this, he raised his eyes and glanced at Wang Xiaoyao, then said blandly, the future. There were many possibilities in the future, so the answer was extremely vague. Wang Xiaoyao shrugged and took a deep look at him, speechless. Jiang Guochu's expression was calm and peaceful. What His Majesty gave him was indeed the future. His future and the future of the Jiang family of South America. Within 5 years, His Majesty promised to make him really close to the threshold of the peak of the invincible realm. And it could be foreseen that this alliance would not disappear at the moment. Jifeng Sword Training School, the Jiang family of South America, Knights Templars, this was just the beginning. It already looked extremely beautiful. There would be more people, more forces joining this alliance. There was no rule here. There were only interests and mutual cooperation. Interests were the eternal theme. Perhaps one day in the future, this alliance would disband because of internal strife. But with His Majesty, these days would not come. As for the further future, at that time, no matter what the alliance did, the Jiang family of South America would get enough interests and would not lose anything. The name of a follower sounded unpleasant, but compared to interests, these were not worth mentioning. Congratulations, Your Majesty. A hoarse voice with a thick Nordic accent rang out. The already gloomy atmosphere in the conference room seemed to darken even more. The hoarse voice echoed slightly and silently. A foot stepped on the ground in front of everyone, followed by a man in black standing in front of the desk. Wang Xiaoyao suddenly felt that the man's dress was a little familiar. The black cloak covered the whole body. He could not see the face, figure, or even whether the person was a man or a woman. He looked down at himself. He found that the two of them dressed almost the same. The corners of his mouth twitched, and he narrowed his eyes. Ju. King Xiaorao. Nice to meet you. Hello. In the black cloak, the hoarse voice laughed in a low voice. If there are any hidden experts in the Wang family of Beihai, you can tell me. I can kill them in advance. You can kill as many people as you want in Mount Dibbing, including Wang Shengxiao. How do you want him to die? Wang Xiaoyao gently raised the corners of his mouth. He glanced around with a faint smile. That's a little interesting. Among all of you, Zhu's combat capability may not be the strongest, but when it comes to killing people, no one can compare with him, including me. His Majesty whispered. No one denied that. He was the only invincible realm killer who was still in the peak state. He was cruel, cold, ruthless, and cunning. He had evolved the peak assassination skills to the extreme. Standing here, he represented the highest level of all the killers in the dark world in this era. His Majesty Morade Wang Xiaorao, Yagyu Kurumi, Tianhai Wuji Zhu and Jiang Guoqiu. 7 invincible realm experts. This was the strongest lineup they had when waging war against Beihai. It was also the greatest confidence for them in Zhongzhou State. In the case that more than half of the invincible realm experts in the dark world had withered, the 7 of them represented the supreme of the dark world. Let's get started. His Majesty reached out and knocked on the conference table, then said in a soft voice. Chapter 835. There was no courtesy or concealment in the meeting in the name of trial. Before the war broke out, this was the last coordination between the top leaders of several superpowers. They had all proved their sincerity before. Now they were discussing the ultimate power to join the war. The first batch of lurkers from Knights Templars is already in place. 4 Grand Knights have secretly arranged it. Within 3 days, the second batch of elites will sneak into the city of Floating Island. There are 3 experts at the peak of the Thunder-Shocking Realm, 9 in the Thunder-Shocking Realm, 70 in the Fire-Flaming Realm, and more than 100 in the Ice-Condensing Realm. We have contacted the intelligence personnel of Zhongzhou State and exchanged some information to a certain extent. After the war breaks out, within 3 hours, Floating Island will fall into a state of chaos. In the most urgent time, we can at least hold off the 20,000 garrison troops of Floating Island City for more than 5 hours. Morade's voice was calm and confident, which was proportional to the power he showed. Floating Island in North Sea was the territory of the Tang family. The 7 sword-holding families were all wealthy families with deep roots. There might be strong and weak ones, but none of them were easy to deal with. With the garrison troops of the Beihai Corps stationed in each city, it was no exaggeration to say that no matter which city they attacked, it would be a real hard battle. The so-called state of chaos referred to the paralysis of some core urban functions of Floating Island in the shortest time, such as traffic, communication signals, and command systems, causing chaos from top to bottom in the whole city. The elites of Knights Templars had prepared everything in Floating Island City. As long as the war broke out, from causing chaos to holding off the garrison troops and retreating, they could at least prevent Floating Island City from helping Mount Dibbing for 12 hours. 12 hours didn't sound long. But in a war that was racing against time, 12 hours was enough to decide everything. Jifeng Sword Raining School and Wuji Palace have joined forces to arrange in Kanglan City. The first batch is already in place, and the second batch of elites will arrive before the war. We are preparing to contact the intelligence personnel of Zhongzhou State. Tianhai Wuji, the palace master of Wuji Palace, touched the broken beard at the corner of his mouth and looked at his watch. He said slowly, "At this time they should have already started to contact. Is Kanglan City so important?" In the black cloak, Zhu raised his head and glanced at Tianhai Wuji. He tooted and said, "Kanglan City is just a small city. You want the 2 major martial arts sects of East Island to join forces? Is your ability too weak? Or is the Jiang family of Kanglan too strong? I heard that the Heaven Saber has been killed by Li Tianlan. What are you worried about? The Kanglan Jiang clan is loyal, brave, and fearless. Even without Heaven Blade, the Jiang clan is still the Jiang clan. No one can say that they are weak. As for us," Yagyu Kureisen, the master of Jifeng Sword Raining School, twitched the corner of his mouth. "Of course, we're not weak. In this war, we've invested 11 superiors of the half-step invincible realm, more than 30 superiors of the thunder-shocking realm, nearly 100 superiors of the thunder-shocking realm, nearly 800 superiors of the fire-flaming realm, and nearly 3,000 superiors below the fire-flaming realm. Absolutely. Do you think Jifeng Sword Raining School and Wuji Palace are weak with such a lineup? There was dead silence in the conference room. The atmosphere seemed to be even stiffer than when His Majesty had announced that the fourth pupil was Jiang Guochu. Everyone cursed in their hearts. 11 half-step invincible realm experts. There were more than 30 experts at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm. There were nearly 100 thunder-shocking realm experts. Nearly 1,000 fire-flaming realm experts. 3,000 elites below the fire-flaming realm. What kind of power is this? This was simply a real army. Judging from the strength on paper, neither the world-famous Border Control Corps of Zhongzhou State, nor the immovable Beihai Corps were as powerful as this one. It could even be said that the army was far inferior. It was impossible for Jifeng Sword Raining School and Wuji Palace to come up with such power. Even if their strength was doubled, they couldn't come up with such a power. Throughout the entire Dark World, only the superpowers like Zhongzhou State and Star State could come up with such a lineup. Superpowers? Maybe only the Wang family of Beihai could have such a terrifying lineup. The strength of the entire East Island is roughly like this. Zhu, whose face was stiff, murmured to himself. Suddenly he froze. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Tianhai Wuji and Yagyu Kureisen. The two grandmasters of East Island didn't say anything. They just looked at him quietly. This is the strength of the entire East Island? He took a deep breath and asked slowly. East Island is ours. It belongs to His Majesty the Mikado. Is there a problem? Tianhai Wuji said calmly. When he spoke, he glanced at His Majesty intentionally or unintentionally. His Majesty sat in a cloud of starlight and didn't seem to respond. Everyone could feel his gentleness and smile. He didn't speak. He had nothing to say. More than 4 years ago, Zhongzhou State conspired against East Island with all its power. More than 4 years later, East Island conspired against Beihai with all its power. Tianhai Wuji pursed his lips, and his eyes looked a little savage. It was indeed the power of a whole country. East Island had already suffered a great loss in the final battle of Heaven Capital. As the purgatory of Heaven Capital moved further and further away from them, East Island became weaker and weaker. His Majesty's will was passed to His Majesty the Mikado through Jifeng Sword. Without any hesitation, the Mikado directly made this seemingly crazy decision. This lineup was almost more than 80% of the existing strength of East Island. And the battlefront they were responsible for was naturally more than one city. It was Kanglan, Tongtian and Qiushui. 3 cities and 80,000 square kilometers of land. That was the territory that the Wang family of Beihai took away from East Island hundreds of years ago. With this island, which had always been called North Island and East Island, the territory of Beihai doubled. And now there was a beautiful land of 160,000 square kilometers. Everyone in East Island could never forget the humiliation that the last Mikado suffered in Beihai when he visited the Wang family of Beihai and tried to take back this territory. And now the opportunity was here. People in East Island didn't need to smile apologetically anymore, and they didn't need to bow down anymore. If you don't give it to me, I will take it. I don't care if there are corpses everywhere and blood flows like rivers. And this action also had a code name in East Island, which was return. Let the land that belonged to East Island return. From the very beginning, East Island regarded this action as a war. A real, highest-level war. Kanglan, Tongtian, and Qiushui, half of Beihai province will become our war zone. The combat teams and fleets of Jifeng Sword Raining School and Wuji Palace will be on standby at any time. We won't detonate the so-called chaos. Or rather, we won't just do that. The 3 so-called sword-holding families, the Jiang family of Kanglan, the Chun clan of Tongtian, and Huangfu of Qiushui, will completely disappear and be destroyed in this war. We can promise you that no matter how long the war lasts, no one from the 3 cities south of Kanglan River will go to support Mount Dibing. Yagyu Kurumi's voice was clear and firm. His expression was serious and solemn. Wu Ju curled his lips and fell completely silent. The combat teams and fleets of Jifeng Sword Raining School and Wuji Palace? Bulsh *T. Jifeng Sword Raining School and Wuji Palace didn't have any combat teams and fleets. Combat teams were the standard configuration of the various superpowers. They were also the core combatants of the various superpowers and the strongest aerial forces. Combat teams generally consisted of the world's first-rate fighters, some even super first-rate fighters, such as helicopters, transport planes and reconnaissance planes, to form a large-scale combat team. Whether it was Jifeng Sword Raining School or Wuji Palace, they weren't superpowers. They couldn't afford it at all. They could afford it if they gritted their teeth, but they couldn't afford daily maintenance, combat personnel, fleet command, private air routes, and training. The fleet was even more exaggerated. It was a navy on the right track. Among the superpowers in the Dark World, only the Wang family of Beihai had its own fleet. Nominally, it still belonged to the Beihai Corps and Zhongzhou State. The so-called fleet and combat teams were obviously the power of East Island. In this action, East Island was totally going to seize this opportunity to stake everything on one throw. We are foreign aid, and most of us are active in Queen City. All of you here are friends of the Jiang family of South America, and the Jiang family of South America will not be stingy with its feathers. Our three superiors of the half-step invincible realm are already in Queen City, and the second batch of elites will soon enter Beihai. There are nearly 800 people in total, and they are all elites. We can also make Queen City unable to support Mount Dibbing in a short time. Jiang Guochu smiled and said in a gentle voice, I have few people, not as many as you. His Majesty can arrange it. Wu Ju shrugged. The so-called rising invincible realm expert was also a killer. Although he was also building his own team, his foundation was inevitably less than that of the people present. His Majesty nodded and looked at Wang Qinglei. Don't worry about Liuli City. Even if the strength is insufficient, His Majesty Wang Xiaoyao can directly control the patriarch of the Yi family as soon as it happens. As for Shengzhou City, Zhongzhou State will do its best to clear the obstacles for you. Wang Qinglei's voice was calm. His Majesty nodded and looked very satisfied. There were only 3 groups of people attacking Beihai. The first group went into Beihai to lurk. The second group was the support force of the first group of elites, and it would also be the main force to detonate the chaos. And the third group, His Majesty Moray Jiang Guochu, Wang Xiaoyao, Yagyu Kurumi, Tianhai Wuji, and Wu Ju were all in the third group. They would take a small number of elites and rush directly to Mount Dibbing. This was the strongest force. And Mount Dibbing would also be the final battlefield. It was expected that in 8 hours, the entire Beihai would be turned upside down. Your Highness, do you have anything else to add? His Majesty glanced at Wang Xiaoyao and suddenly asked with a smile. No. Wang Xiaoyao said blandly. This is already very good. He stared at the table in front of him, a little absent-minded. He thought of the raging force that was about to rush into Beihai. He suddenly thought of his big brother, who would stand in front of him no matter what danger there was when he was a child. Sword Emperor. Thinking of that figure. Beihai thinking of that land. He Wang Xiaoyao took a deep breath, and his eyes suddenly became extremely cruel and cold. Chapter 836. His Majesty looked at Wang Xiaoyao seriously, and didn't speak for a while. In the clouds and starlight, he sat there, and his aura was calm and deep. Wang Xiaoyao seemed to know what he wanted to say. He sorted out his thoughts and said blandly, When the time comes, my people will automatically cooperate with you. There's no need to say more. Compared with you, I don't have many people, but whether it's ability, loyalty, or position, they can play a great role. You need me to sneak in, and you also need me to retreat. His Majesty nodded and said softly, It's best if your Highness is willing to do your best. I have no way out. Wang Xiaoyao was expressionless. This could be said to be the biggest crisis of the Wang family of Beihai in the past 100 years. And he also became the biggest traitor in the Wang family of Beihai for hundreds of years. It was no exaggeration to say that the Wang family of Beihai also had chaos and purges in history, but as the lineal brother of the patriarch, Wang Xiaoyao was the first traitor in the history of the entire Wang family of Beihai. If he and Wang Qinglei succeeded in their plan, it would start a new era of the Wang family of Beihai. But if the plan failed, Wang Xiaoyao would definitely not have a good end. Not to mention what would happen to Wang Qinglei. It was a small matter that he was smashed to pieces. In the next decades or hundreds of years, he would even be spurned by the descendants of the Wang family of Beihai for many years. He really had no way out, so he had to go all out. His Majesty moved his body and seemed to be relieved. He smiled, looked at Wang Qinglei and asked, "Speaker, do you have anything to add?" Wang Qinglei was his partner, and many things that should be said had actually been said before the meeting. But now Wang Qinglei was sitting here, representing not only his partner, but also the attitude and will of the whole Zhongzhou state towards this war. East Island could attack Beihai with all its strength. The Vatican and the Jiang family of South America could also send out all their elites. Even if Zhongzhou state didn't send out a single soldier, Wang Qinglei was also qualified to sit here. Because Beihai still belonged to Zhongzhou state after all. What they needed most was the acquiescence of Zhongzhou state. What was more, what Zhongzhou state gave them was not only acquiescence but also considerable help. So even His Majesty respected Wang Qinglei very much. Before I came here, I had a detailed and in-depth communication with the Prime Minister. In principle, Zhongzhou state agrees to activate all the chess pieces hidden in Beihai and provide you with all the help, including intelligence, concealment, attack routes, assassination targets, and even direct participation in the battle and evacuation plans, as well as entry and exit routes. Wang Qinglei said calmly, "For this war, Zhongzhou state is very determined. We will give you great support, but we have only one request. Please go ahead." His Majesty said seriously. Everyone sat up straight, their faces solemn. Efficiency. Wang Qinglei's voice was crisp and cold. We just need to be efficient and fast. The sooner the better. It's even best to launch the war within 3 days. This matter has been delayed for a long time. Given the current political environment of Zhongzhou state, everyone's time is very tight. So the sooner the better. 3 days. Tianhai Wuji was the first to frown. That's impossible. It was indeed impossible. Their first batch of elites had just finished the initial lurking. Although the second batch of elites had been selected, they had not yet entered Beihai province. This was also the fundamental goal of this meeting. To be exact, it was the handover of intelligence. Intelligence about Beihai. The Vatican, the Jiang family of South America, East Island, Zhongzhou state, Wang Xiaoyao and Zhu. All the intelligence about the Wang family of Beihai was handed over by all the superpowers. This was destined to be a very long and boring process. They had to make sure that every key chess pieces roll at the critical moment. And the way to deal with the failure of the chess pieces. They had to use each other's intelligence to make up for the shortcomings in their own reports, so as to work out a more perfect plan. 3 days. Not to mention how long it would take for the second batch of elites to sneak in. They couldn't even finish the handover of intelligence. Wang Qinglei nodded to show that he understood, but he still said the same thing. The sooner the better. It doesn't seem to be so urgent yet. Zhu's voice sounded slowly. I know the situation in your country. Your president and prime minister still have at least a year. Oh, maybe less than a year. It's winter now, and their terms will end in late autumn tomorrow. Nearly a year is enough for us to prepare well. I think 3 months later, it's probably the Spring Festival or the first lunar month of Zhongzhou state. We can all be well prepared. At that time, we can give Beihai a big New Year gift, isn't it? It's very ceremonial. Wang Qinglei praised with a poker face, but it's extremely stupid. Zhu's face darkened and he didn't speak. I said to start in advance not only because of the 2 leaders' terms of office, but also for your consideration. Zhongzhou state will do its best to help you avoid an enemy that none of you want to meet. Believe me, none of you, including His Majesty, wants to meet him. Everyone froze for a moment. You mean Li Tianlan? Yagyu Kurumi asked directly. Today Zhongzhou state also had a new invincible realm expert, Saint, and the top invincible realm expert, Gong Sun Qi. But looking at all the experts in Zhongzhou state, Yagyu Kurumi didn't know what others thought. At least, the last person he wanted to meet was Li Tianlan. And he was keenly aware that when he said the name, everyone's body tightened for a moment. Even the clouds and starlight around His Majesty unnaturally stagnated for a moment. Li Tianlan. Many people in the Dark World, and even most of them, thought that after the end of the chaos in Eastern Europe, except for the reclusive Lin clan and Lin Fengting, Li Tianlan was now the top expert in the Dark World. Whether they were convinced by this evaluation or not, it was true that no one was willing to face Li Tianlan and 13 floors. Did Li Tianlan agree to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai? His Majesty sat up straight and looked extremely serious. There is no definite news yet, but we all know that the possibility of their cooperation is very high. The two leaders have been to the desert prison. Li Tianlan did not give a clear response. He just said that he needed to think about it. What he promised was that if the war broke out, he would not appear on the battlefield. Wang Qinglei said. What else do we need to worry about? Moraid asked subconsciously. This promise is not reliable, at least we think so. The longer we delay, the more likely it is that Li Tianlan will break his promise. If a person really wants to break his promise, he can find a reason at will. It's not a problem to even think of a reason after doing it. What I want to say is that before Li Tianlan made this promise, he had not talked to Wang Shengxiao. When the two leaders visited Li Tianlan, Wang Shengxiao was also there. No one knows the content of their negotiation, but I can be sure that after Li Tianlan negotiated with Wang Shengxiao, Saint personally went to Mount Dibing and took away the coldness of 9 states. Wang Qinglei's voice was cold. This may be, snap. Before he could finish his words, a clear and melodious voice suddenly rang out. In an instant, the conference room, which was full of red and dark tones, was occupied by a haze. The haze was like light, like clouds and mist, boundless, with an almost eternal silence. The hazy light appeared and disappeared in an instant. Everyone's heart palpitated for a moment. In their line of sight, His Majesty's figure, he had stood up abruptly. The teacup in his hand was crushed by him. Looking at Wang Qinglei, his breath had become completely stiff. No one could see his expression, but everyone could feel His Majesty's solemnity at this time. Li Tianlan, His Majesty stared at Wang Qinglei. Took away the coldness of 9 states? Are you sure? Yes. Wang Qinglei frowned. He felt a little uncomfortable under His Majesty's gaze. How long ago did this happen? His Majesty's voice was still calm, but everyone could feel his annoyance. This matter was not a secret to Wang Qinglei, but it was ridiculous that they didn't know it until now. More than a month, nearly 2 months ago. Wang Qinglei replied. You. His Majesty suddenly raised his hand and pointed at Wang Qinglei, then put it down hard. He stood where he was and was silent for a long time. Then he took a deep breath and smiled. Fortunately, it's not too late. I don't understand what you mean, Wang Qinglei said slowly. That's because you don't know what the 13th floor is. His Majesty said heavily and suddenly said, I agree with Zhongzhou State's plan. Everyone, we don't have enough time. 1 month. I hope that within a month, we can start a war that can destroy Mount Dibing and Beihai. It can't be more than 50 days at most. Otherwise, we may encounter big trouble, real big trouble. What trouble? Li Tianlan alone fights against all of us? Zhu sneered. It's not Li Tianlan, His Majesty said slowly. It's Li Tianlan and the 13th floor. So, we must speed up all actions at all costs. Before His Majesty's voice faded away, his cell phone suddenly rang. Wang Qinglei subconsciously looked at the number, and his face changed slightly. He subconsciously picked it up and whispered, Prime Minister. Everyone was stunned at the same time. They looked at Wang Qinglei and didn't speak. What? No one could hear clearly what the Prime Minister of Zhongzhou State said on the phone. But suddenly, Wang Qinglei's face changed dramatically, and he stood up all at once. His body trembled slightly, and his face was a little pale. His Majesty looked at this scene, and his heart suddenly sank. Wang Qinglei held the table with one hand, and tried his best to hold the phone with the other. Chen Fangqing was still talking on the phone. Wang Qinglei's body gradually became stable. However, His face was still somewhat pale, and there was undisguised fear on his face. Okay, I understand. Wang Qinglei said slowly and silently put down the phone. What's the matter? His Majesty asked, pretending to be calm. Wang Qinglei glanced at everyone, and didn't know what to say for a moment. He just asked everyone to speed up their actions, but in the blink of an eye, he suddenly heard the bad news from Zhongzhou State. Even with his will, he found it difficult to speak at this moment. Everyone. Wang Qinglei hesitated and said slowly. There are some problems in Beihai, and we are in trouble. But I don't think this is a reason for us to postpone the action. What trouble? Be more specific. His Majesty's tone was a little impatient. In one night, Zhongzhou State lost 4 major generals lurking in Beihai. Our people suffered heavy losses, and the elites of the superpowers were also greatly affected. Wang Qinglei smiled bitterly and said, I think you will soon see the battle damage. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.